Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and we are live streaming on YouTube, simulcasting on X Spaces, and on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for joining. This live stream is on August 10th. I will also be doing a replay on all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. So please subscribe to all the channels. The links are in the description of this video and all my videos. Also, if you could, to help support the work, because all of this is for free, please ask your social media to follow me, share the links, and if you would like, help support the work through donations on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee, or be a paid member to my Patreon channel. I do all these videos for free. I don't put stuff behind a paywall, so it's through the patronage of purchasing the products, sharing the links, and helping through donations and paid subscriptions on Patreon that help me to do these videos for free. So I greatly appreciate all the patronage throughout the years. Thank you very much. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the different news that's been taking place over the weekend. And then just a reminder, this today, August 10th, we have a plan to have a live streaming show with John Hogue. So please join us at 10 p.m. New York time, so Eastern time. And it's going to be live. You'll be able to ask questions through X Spaces or through the chat. It's an interactive show, so please join us. That's 10 p.m. tonight. So please join us. All right, with that, let's go to Fox Business. Weaponization is real. GOP lawmaker calls for reforms amid debanking concerns.
And being able to build just by thinking about it. DeepBase 44, a complete AI creation platform.
Yeah, in a drive.
Welcome back. President Trump to sign an executive order penalizing big banks and possibly crypto companies for discriminating over customer politics. He will reportedly instruct regulators to review banks for, quote, politicized or unlawful debanking practices. The president called out J.P. Morgan Chase and Bank of America, saying that they both refused to accept more than $1 billion of his deposits after the last election. Both banks denied the claims. J.P. Morgan told Fox Business, "We don't close accounts for political reasons, and we agree with President Trump that regulatory change is desperately needed. We commend the White House for addressing this issue and look forward to working with them to get this right." Bank of America said this: "We welcome the Trump administration's efforts to provide regulatory clarity for banks. We've provided detailed proposals and will continue to work with the administration and Congress to improve the regulatory framework." And then Capital One, a spokesperson there, told us Capital One has not and does not close customer accounts for political reasons. We have yet to hear back from First Republic and TD Bank. Joining me now is Ohio Congressman Warren Davidson, a member of the House Financial Services and Foreign Affairs Committees. Congressman, what do you think about all of this? I mean, I've spoken to members of the Trump family. They told me directly that they had been debanked by these companies, and President Trump said that he wanted to deposit $1 billion in these banks in 2020. And they declined. Your reaction?
Yeah, the House Financial Services Committee is aware of multiple people who have had the same problems. And look, the Biden administration targeted all kinds of people. If you look at the wake of January 6th, you had all kinds of people who weren't even there on January 6th who had their bank accounts disclosed. Bank of America went public with the fact that they basically went on fishing expeditions for unconstitutional warrantless surveillance of people's bank accounts. The House Judiciary Committee and the Committee on Weaponization provided a detailed report of these Bank Secrecy Act violations. And when you look at, customers who were debanked, look at the banks that were debanked. Signature Bank, for example, Barney Frank of the Dodd-Frank Act, a liberal from Massachusetts, when he was in Congress, chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, when Democrats were in the majority, he said they didn't have a problem with solvency. They had a problem because they were banking crypto. So crypto and conservative has become synonymous, but in the industry, that's not true. The Biden administration just targeted their enemies list.
Yeah, that's true. And they were governing that way. I spoke with both Melania Trump as well as Eric Trump, the president's son, about this debanking issue. And here's what they've told me over the last few months. Watch. Your bank canceling your,
I took control, went solo, and built my own online knife empire. I loved being a chef. It worked.
your bank canceling your account, you know, this pushback from so many areas of your life that you never saw before. But suddenly the powers that be wanted to cancel you. What happened and how did that feel?
It happened already in the White House, and soon he announced for politics, but later on, more when we left the White House, when I established my own business. As you said, the bank suddenly informed me they will not be able to do business with me anymore. Also, I had very prominent email distribution service provider just rapidly terminated my agreement. So suddenly, as well as the university, I was all agreed that they will accept my donations for the foster students, and because of the board directors, they called back, they found out that it was me, they didn't, they said we cannot go on. And it's very, very sad because who suffered? They were children from foster community. They didn't have a scholarship that somebody would provide for them. They didn't want to do business with me because of political affiliation, my political beliefs.
Maria, I never thought I'd fall into the world of crypto until every bank started canceling us for absolutely no reason whatsoever, other than the fact that my father was in politics, right? I mean, we got canceled by absolutely everybody. They came after us viciously.
Which banks canceled you? What happened?
Oh God, everybody. Capital One being the largest. I've sued them recently. Chase canceled us.
Okay, so it was Capital One, because I know that Capital One also canceled Melania Trump, I understand as well. So it was Capital One. Who else?
Maria, you can't believe when you get those calls, right? And they came after us viciously because my father was in the White House and they wanted to punish us, right? The legal warfare from the Biden administration was unbelievable. That doesn't mean that banks should cancel people because of political views. That's exactly what Capital One did. Chase did the same thing. Bank of America did the same thing. TD did the same thing. First Republic did the same thing to us. Maria, you wouldn't believe the stories that I heard as I traveled around the country on the campaign trail. The weaponization is real, and it has to stop. You can't have banks pick who and shoot, who they're going to lend to.
Exactly.
Who they're going to
Exactly. And you have to put this in a mosaic here. What was happening when the truckers in Canada were protesting? Freelander cut their bank accounts and their modes of payment, canceled their credit cards, canceled their PayPal. So they froze them in such a way where they were able to control the truckers, and then the truckers backed off with the protest. When you go to digital currency, all digital and no paper, no coinage, what happens is that you're locked into the banking system and you can't pull it out. And what will happen is that if they don't like your politics, or if they don't like whatever, or they want to ostracize a certain group of people, they'll be able to do it and cut their banking. They'll debank them or throttle them. So payments are slower or whatever. There's many different varieties of this. This is one huge problem with going 100% digital and depending on the banking system. Another problem is that with blockchain, it has the ability to track the actual transactions. So not only can the government debank you, the government can see exactly where you're doing your purchases and how that particular dollar went through the system. So it's metatagged. So if the bank knows all of your dollars within the blockchain, so let's say you're not debanked, but you're in the banking system and it's under a blockchain, then each one of those dollars that you have at the bank has a particular unique number, kind of like a serial number on a dollar bill. But now, because of it being all digital, it can track on how you spend all of those blockchain numbers. So it's a surveillance technology. So it's beyond debanking. It's also the banking industry is consolidating your money, keeping it in the system so you can never take it out. And the government can use the banking system to track and trace you.
States of America based on their political affiliation.
And this is what I was warning about when I was talking about the BioPatriot Act. Back in 2020, I kept on saying the BioPatriot Act, BioPatriot Act. And that part of the BioPatriot Act is digital currency and track and trace.
We were targeted and we're going to hold those banks accountable.
Congressman, is there anything you can do in the Financial Services Committee in your role to ensure that this is not like a ping pong ball every time there's a different administration in place, that the banks are going to get bullied by that? I mean, obviously the Biden administration was bullying social media, and now we understand they were bullying the banks as well.
She doesn't ask good questions usually, but this is a great question. I am concerned that when Trump leaves office, that another administration will fall in line with the big system and use this to suppress the population.
Ostracized in the Trump administration.
That's why the banks basically act as an intermediary between the government and people, because they're so heavily regulated, and the government has massive coercive power over the banks. And under President Obama, they termed this Operation Choke Point. So under Biden's administration, the last 4 years, they termed that Operation Choke Point 2.0, and it was all the idea that you could weaponize government, use the power of bank regulation to steer the banks to act on behalf of whoever's in control of the government. That tells you have way too much government. We have to defang this regulatory state.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're working on, is a choke point reform so that no administration can do that to their political enemies. And look, this isn't, people being denied loans. This is like $1 billion a deposit. Who turns that down? Melania's case, I want to give money to foster kids and people won't accept it from a charity. I mean, this is crazy stuff. And look, but unfortunately in our country, we've had civil rights violations before where people were denied loans or access to banking or any other kind of reason because of their race or any other reason, religion. But, essentially it's another version of, well, you're not going to bank those people, are you? And we have to defang that kind of regulatory state.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Congressman, what do you make of this Russia meeting? White House Special Envoy Steve Witkoff meeting with Vladimir Putin yesterday in Moscow ahead of President Trump's deadline for Russia to make peace with Ukraine. The president signaling great progress in those talks, writing on Truth Social, great progress was made. Afterwards, I updated some of our European allies. Everyone agrees this war must come to a close, and we will work toward that in the days to come, or in the weeks to come. President Trump says he hopes to meet with Putin in person as soon as next week, Congressman. What do you want to see happen in this meeting? We're also getting confirmation from the Kremlin that the meeting is likely on.
I'm so excited by President Trump's strong leadership, peace through strength. He's using every lever of government to advance America's agenda. You think about that, what a crazy idea that America's resources should advance America's interests. And President Trump has very clearly stated a mission in Ukraine, something the Biden administration would never do, and would never engage directly with the people waging the war. So it seems crazy. Finally, President Trump is in a position to deliver his goal of peace in Ukraine. He wants people to stop dying. I mean, what a noble cause. And hopefully Putin's ready to come. I think the President Trump and Secretary Rubio have been measured. They don't want to overcommit here because they have grown very frustrated with Putin. They feel like he's trying to run out the clock and, not engage in sincere negotiations. But they finally have Zelensky in a place where he's ready to be serious about negotiations. And look, talk about tone deaf. He was ready to disable the corruption investigators in Ukraine, and thankfully the public in Ukraine pushed back on that, and he passed a law basically giving the corruption investigators more power. So that's a step in the right direction for both countries.
Yeah, great point. Congressman, good to see you this morning. Thank you, sir. Warren Davison joining us. I will see you soon. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Big retailers don't want you to have this Zoom.
All right, let's listen in on Ukraine's European allies say Kiev must be in peace talks as U.S. and Russia hold meeting. BBC.
European allies of Ukraine have called for more pressure on Russia ahead of Friday's summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. The group, which includes Britain, France, and Germany, said Ukraine must be involved in decisions about a path to peace. Overnight, they issued a joint statement saying the path to peace in Ukraine cannot be decided without Ukraine, adding, "We remain committed to the principle that international borders must not be changed by force." Well, President Zelensky, who's already ruled out handing over any land to Russia in exchange for peace, has been consulting his European allies in the lead-up to Friday's talks in Alaska. As it stands, Mr. Zelensky has not been invited to those talks, and the White House have said that there are currently no plans for that to change. However, they did confirm that President Trump was open, as they say, to have trilateral talks in Alaska with both leaders. Meanwhile, on Sunday, Russia said an industrial facility was damaged as a result of a Ukrainian drone attack in the southwestern Saratov region, leaving one person dead and a huge fire with thick smoke seen rising from the scene. Now, according to Russian news agencies, 121 Ukrainian drones were destroyed overnight. Joe Inwood reports.
On a bright Kiev morning, another Ukrainian soldier was laid to rest. As his widow looks on, his mother reflects on the difficult situation the country finds itself in and the sacrifices it is being asked to make for peace.
Right now, we don't have the opportunity to recapture our territories. But to prevent people from dying, we could sign some kind of agreement, but not give up our territories. Not agree that we are giving the captured territories to Russia.
That feeling that the war must end, but not in a way that rewards Russia's aggression, is not just found in this capital, but right across Europe. It was reflected at a hastily arranged meeting of European and Ukrainian security officials yesterday, hosted by the British Foreign Secretary and US Vice President.
And all the partners share the same understanding of the need for a ceasefire, for an end to the killings. Only one actor stands against this, Putin. His only card is the ability to kill, and he is trying to sell the cessation of killings at the highest possible price.
The fear was, and maybe remains, that when Presidents Putin and Trump meet here in Alaska next Friday, talk of territory swaps will really be about Ukrainian concessions.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
Ever since his now infamous bust up in the White House, Volodymyr Zelensky has gone out of his way not to criticize Donald Trump or his plans for peace. That same caution was evident in the joint statement from Keir Starmer, along with key European leaders, following yesterday's meeting, which welcomed US talks, but said, "We are convinced that only an approach that combines active diplomacy, support to Ukraine, and pressure on the Russian Federation to end their illegal war can succeed. We stand ready to support this work diplomatically, as well as by upholding our substantive military and financial support to Ukraine." But the key question remains, to what extent will the presidents of other countries try to decide the future of this one without input from Kyiv? And if they do, how will Ukraine react? Joe Inwood, BBC News.
Well, earlier I spoke to Sergei Sanovich, a fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University in the US, and I asked him about this intervention by the European leaders and more on whether that was far enough.
We don't know yet, but I think it's hugely important because what Russia wants is to focus the conversation on the territories, who controls Kramatorsk and Slovets. But you cannot look at it in isolation, right? Putin will say it's a small price to pay for a ceasefire, right? This is largely emptied and partially destroyed towns in Donetsk Oblast. Why not just cede it to Russia? But these are heavily fortified towns. And if Russia would try to take it by force, it would take years. If Ukraine just steals them, then it would Russia would be in much more favorable position to go further west and to take other parts of Ukraine. So if it's not directly tied to either NATO membership or some other security guarantees and continuation of weapons, military support from key allies like United Kingdom, like Germany and United States, then it would be just a small temporary pause in the war, not what Trump is hoping for.
So what do you think President Trump and Mr. Putin are hoping to get out of this? I mean, has it got anything to do with what Ukraine wants or needs? What's going on between the two men, do you think?
A lot. But I think that is sort of, if they, like the fact of the meeting matters a lot to each one of them. Because, they try to sort of show to the world that they're the tough guy. But for us, let alone for Ukraine, it doesn't matter that much. What matters is calculus. Did the calculus of Putin change? Trump showed the result, and this now newly united and newly generous NATO stands firmly behind Ukraine. That's an important factor. This threat of sanctions, secondary sanctions of those countries who still consume Russian energy, that's important. But also the previous willingness of Trump to put pressure on Ukraine, right? This package might be of interest to Putin. If it is, this could be a productive meeting. If it isn't, it will be, either the continue sort of the repeat of their failed meeting in Helsinki during Trump's first term, where Putin just pulled Trump into believing the Russian talking points, or it would be if they try to show who is the top guy sort of live on air. We are staring at another disaster like it was with Zelensky in the Oval Office, but now with Putin and on ice.
Sergei, who actually has the best leverage, the upper hand in all of this? Because Mr. Trump saying that he would be open, even though Mr. Zelensky hasn't openly been invited to these talks on Friday, is this just a case of optics? Who has the real strength out of the three of them?
Trump has a lot of leverage. The question is if he's willing to use it, because he is offering Putin a unique deal. Take a piece of Ukraine, walk free from all the war crimes that you committed. He even discussed, formally barring Ukraine from joining NATO and sanctions relief, which is important, not because the Russian economy is collapsing now, right? It isn't. But Putin is not about to step out of office, right? He cares what happens with the Russian economy in 5 years, in 10 years. And for that, sanctions are very important. This is an important leverage. The question if Trump and European allies are willing to use it on behalf of Ukraine.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer. It helps support the work that I do. I do all these videos for free for individuals to learn about the news, my perspective on it, what's going on in the international markets, how to trade.
Butter affects love handles.
The reason butter is called butter is.
It's amazing. All right, so just help support the work by purchasing the great products that I offer, because I do these videos for free. I tell you how to play the markets, how to benefit from some of the news that pops up, especially when I show the telemetry of the market in real time. So one great supplement that I have on my store that stacks really well with C60 and ubiquinol and resveratrol is NAD+. NAD+ helps to boost up your energy levels. It helps to repair your DNA. That's your cellular DNA and your mitochondrial DNA. And NAD+ helps to protect your neurons. So by taking NAD+ regularly, and especially if you stack it with some of the other supplements that I'll be talking about later, you're going to be able to have more energy. You're going to be repairing that DNA damage, and you're going to be protecting your neurons. Now, two things that are really important here, or three things. When you get older, your energy levels go down because your mitochondrial health goes down. But by taking NAD+, you're going to be boosting up your NAD+ levels. You're going to have more energy. Your DNA will be healthier because you're repairing the DNA damage that accumulates as you get older. And you're repairing the mitochondrial DNA. And you're protecting your neurons. Now, when you get older, your mitochondrial health starts to go down. Part of that reason is that there's too much stress in the cell. Another part is that there's an accumulation of mitochondrial DNA damage. Well, you need to heal that. So NAD+ helps with that. In addition, when you get older, your neuron health goes down, partially because the mitochondria in the neuron starts to go down, partially because of cellular damage, and partially because of stress. So if you take NAD+, you're helping to protect your neuron. And especially if you stack it, it works even better. If you stack it with ubiquinol or resveratrol or C60, and it adds to the neural protection. Clarity Factor is another great stack. So go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take this NAD+ to boost up those NAD+ levels. Very important, especially for neural health. Now, another great supplement that you can stack with NAD+ is vitamin B complex. Vitamin B complex will help you to rev up your metabolism, help with the electron transport chain to build more ATP, and to protect neurons. The first 4 B vitamins will help with that electron transport chain, boost up those energy levels, and it's going to help the mitochondrial health. Vitamin B complex, especially B12, will help to protect the neuron. Rev up the other B complex vitamins are going to rev up that cellular metabolism. So you're reversing all these effects of normal aging. Because with normal aging, your electron transport chain doesn't work as well. With normal aging, your energy levels go down. With normal aging, your neural health starts to decline. You want to reverse that. And there are ways to do it through supplementation and proper diet and exercise. A holistic approach is very useful so you don't go into pharmacopoeia. So please go to my store, get the vitamin B complex, and stack it with the NAD+ is a great way to stack it. You can take them separately, but like I said, if you listen to how to stack, that's the magic of how to get the most efficacy out of these supplements. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
Every time I hit a bottleneck, I build a new AI employee to crush it.
I used to say that I had one AI employee working for me 24/7, but the truth is I've got a team all custom built.
Meanwhile, the White House considering inviting Ukrainian President Zelensky to Alaska for President Trump's high-stakes meeting with Russian President Putin this Friday. Vice President Vance, meanwhile, is in the UK meeting with Ukrainian and European allies. U.S. officials saying significant progress was made as Zelensky insists he won't sign any deal that involves giving up land to Russia. Excuse me. Foreign policy analyst E.J. Kimball joins us now. E.J., a lot has transpired just in the last 24 to 48 hours. Obviously, Vance over in the UK, but Zelensky's taken a really hard line saying that he's not ready to cede any territory or land. What do you make of this?
Well, thanks for having me on this morning. Great to see you again. Look, President Zelensky is negotiating just like Vladimir Putin is negotiating, calling that any deal he'll want Eastern Ukraine and guarantees that Ukraine won't be part of NATO. You know, this is the public negotiating period. What's very interesting for me, the way that I'm looking at this, is the dynamics have changed. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but President Trump has done something very significant, and that is that Europe is now paying for the weapons that are going to Ukraine. This has taken it as an issue off the table in the United States. about sending additional weapons there. This is leverage that President Trump has now. It's something he did not have when he came into office. And Vladimir Putin is now coming to the table, at least for this conversation. Now, where it goes from here, of course, that's going to happen behind closed doors. But President Trump has shown by the peace deal that he just brokered between Armenia and Azerbaijan, other deals that he's made, that he's able to get to yes. And it's going to be very difficult, but he is moving in that direction.
It's very interesting too, EJ, that President Trump has really changed the table setting with his tariff threats on India, raising it on India, which obviously is the second biggest seller of gas and oil to Russia. We'll see if that plays out. Meanwhile, let me ask you about Axios reporting that White House envoy Steve Witkoff met with Qatari Prime Minister to discuss a plan to end the Gaza war, another front where President Trump is really pushing to try and bring some closure here. What do you make of that?
Well, look, first of all, the Qataris are housing Hamas. They've been housing Hamas all along. The negotiations that are going on, look, it's not like, you got the Stewarts and the Webbs negotiating over a farm here. This is very high stakes, and you've got on one side a genocidal jihadist organization that is holding hostages, starving them deliberately. And on the other side, you have a democracy in Israel that's trying to just secure its citizens. It would be great for a deal that ends this war, that returns all of the hostages, and that Hamas leaves Gaza and the people of Gaza can actually have a future where they can build something productive. I'm not terribly optimistic right now because the Qataris have not been pushing Hamas enough. The Qataris could be arresting Hamas leaders in Qatar if they were very serious about this. They're not. So I'm not so optimistic about it. However, there needs to be more significant pressure, and countries that are calling to recognize the state of Palestine is the exact opposite of what should be happening if they're looking to end this war.
Yeah, that's a great point. Looking at you, Emmanuel Macron, and other world leaders that have done that. And of course, in the backdrop of all of this, Qataris are going to have to deal with the fact that Prime Minister Netanyahu has said, we are going to go in if we have to bring this to a resolution and get those hostages out. EJ Kimball, thank you very much for taking time. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube.
All right, we're going to go to GOP lawmakers warn redistricting battle could bring mutual assured destruction.
Imagine being able to build anything, for any reason, in any style, at any scale, just like.
We're joined by Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott. Welcome back to the show, Governor. Good to see you.
You too, Shannon. Thanks.
So let's talk about some of these leaders who've left Texas. They say they're not on the run, they're not hiding, they're out doing media appearances. And part of what they want to do is to encourage the comments like you heard there from Governor Gavin Newsom. Here's your Texas State Rep Ron Reynolds.
We got to change the rules of engagement and not allow President Trump to continue to have us bringing knives to gunfight. So if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. We will do whatever it takes or however long it takes.
So, Governor, how long could this take? When do you launch the next special election? When do you expect?
You notice that the Democratic Party is always having in their rhetoric some sort of violent theme in terms of burning down the town or bringing knife to a gunfight and all this. It's never peaceful. It's never peaceful rhetoric. It's always violent rhetoric. Democratic Party is nothing but a bunch of thugs.
Answers from the courts who petitioned there in Texas.
So first, this could literally last years because in Texas, I'm authorized to call a special session every 30 days. It lasts 30 days. And as soon as this one is over, I'm going to call another one, then another one, then another one, then another one. If they show back up in the state of Texas, they will be arrested and taken to the Capitol. If they want to evade that arrest, they're going to just stay outside of the state of Texas for literally years. And they might as well just start voting in California or voting in Illinois, wherever they may be. And that will aid and support the lawsuit that I filed in the Texas Supreme Court saying that these lawmakers have abandoned their seat because we are incapable of conducting business for the people of Texas because they have fled. This is the most un-Texan thing we've ever seen. In Texas, from the time of the Alamo until today, Texas stand and fight. What these cowards did, they didn't stand and fight. They fled and went to leftist blue states that may be more aligned with their personal philosophy that is not welcome in the state of Texas.
So you talk about the legal action there and the petition with the Texas Supreme Court. Now, back in 2021, the Texas Supreme Court did hold that your state constitution does recognize this quorum breaking by the minority can happen. So how do you now expect to convince them that these folks have abdicated or abandoned their seats?
Well, Shannon, the Texas Supreme Court didn't do exactly what you said. It did have a sentence in there that said that the way the Constitution works enables a quorum break, but it didn't authorize it. Let me give you an easy example. An interstate highway enables you to be able to drive 100 miles per hour on that interstate highway, but you're not authorized to do it. And if you do it, there's going to be consequences for which you could be held into court. And that's exactly what we have with the quorum break here. We have a situation where lawmakers are violating the law in Article 3 of the Texas Constitution, where they are required to act on bills because they're violating that constitutional mandate. That means they are not fulfilling their oath of office, and they can be removed from office in this legal action that I'm taking.
Okay, so our next guest, Governor Hochul of New York, has welcomed some of your members who have fled there. She is praising them. Here's a bit of what
of course. It's a sanctuary state. Of course, New York's going to just have open arms for Democrats that run away from their job obligations.
What Texas and Republican states are doing at the direction of Donald Trump, I say is nothing short of a legal insurrection.
Oh, now. Oh, so not only are they thugs, not only are the Democratic Party a bunch of thugs and mobsters, but now they're they want to control the English language. They want to throw away the Webster Dictionary, and they want to rewrite words. And now they're going to try to control you with their alchemy of language. Now it's a legal insurrection. They're just trying to resurrect back to January 6th. You know what the real resurrection was? Wasn't on the mall of January 6th. The real resurrection, insurrection. I'm a little tired. All right, the insurrection, the insurrection of January 6th wasn't on the mall. The insurrection really took place when the government wasn't willing to audit the voter rolls, audit the machines, not certify. Certify and audit are two different concepts. And most Americans don't understand this. But the auditing of those voter rolls to show that there were people voting that shouldn't have voted, the auditing of the code of the Dominion machines didn't take place. So where's the real insurrection? The insurrection took place by the government, not we the people.
Legal meaning they're using the legal process does not mean it's legal, and it must be stopped.
So is there any conversation about legal liability for jurisdictions, for leaders, for other places where some of these Texans have fled?
So listen, all this big talk and bluster by Democrat governors is nothing more than weak sauce, because the fact of the matter is they are bringing a gun to a gunfight, but they have no bullets because they lost their bullets when they engaged in redistricting.
This is dangerous. And I'm a Republican, all right? Now, I'm a capitalist, I'm a Republican, I believe about less government is better government, less taxation is better, right? Strong on defense, all right? That's the kind of politic that I am. But what is dangerous, and this is the governor of Texas, I think it's Governor Abbott. So when you have both sides of the aisle, Democrat or Republican, using this rhetoric about war against each other, it's dangerous. All right? We shouldn't be, the conversation shouldn't be, are they saving the Alamo or not? It should be a little bit more peaceful, less bombastic rhetoric. And that's what causes the whole society to be charged. It's polarized. When there's polarization, there's energy, and that energy could be negative. So this rhetoric, even from Abbott, is bad.
Gerrymandering over the past decade. They have, because if you look at what the way lines are drawn in California, in New York, and Illinois, Massachusetts, where there are no Republicans whatsoever.
So the way he's making the argument right now, that's the right way to do it. But people are running out of bullets in their gun, and got to come back to the Alamo and blah blah blah. That kind of rhetoric can be pushed aside. But there's a real problem here. So that the Democratic Party has purposely faked the census with illegal immigration, and it's caused redistricting problems. Now the census is over, places have redistrict, but now people are like, now the Republican Party is starting to wake up to the fact that the Democratic Party has been doing this redistricting fakery. Now the question is, what do you do to fix it? There needs to be a new census without illegals in it. It should be ex-illegals. And then the question is in these areas that have been redistricted, should they be redistricted in the middle of elections, midterm elections, or in the middle of the census time frame of, I think it's every 10 years. And there's a big debate on should you or should you not do it. But this started not because of the Republican Party. This started because of the Democratic Party being mobsters and circumventing the rules, cutting corners, thinking they wouldn't get caught. Democratic Party, they are mobsters. They always have been. You look at the whole history of the Democratic Party, they acted like mobsters. They have more in line with Al Capone than Mother Teresa. All right.
Republicans that they can move out of office. If Texas had drawn our lines mathematically the same way that California had, we would be not adding 5 more seats, we would be adding 10 more seats. And if you look at all the Republican states across the entire country, if we engage in this war of making sure that each state is going to draw their lines the way that the Democrat states have, Republicans are going to be able to pick up maybe as many as 25 seats. And then I'll add on top of that, with each passing census, it's the red states that are getting the population, the blue states that are losing population. We know mathematically that New York and California, they lost seats this last.
This point that he's saying is so super important. You have to pay attention. This is the reason why the Democratic Party are playing these games. They know their states are imploding. They're going to lose seats in the federal representation in the House. The House of Representatives, for the ones that don't know American politics, right? And our government. So it's based on population. And if population shift, then the number of seats there's 2 things going on here. The number of seats, if the population shift to a different state, then the number of seats that are available for a state could go up or down depending on that population dynamic. In addition, when the districts are changing and turning more red than blue in a state, independent of the change of population, within that state, the number of representatives that are Republican will go to Washington, D.C. There'll be more of them. So there's two dynamics here that are going on. The centroid, the centroid is a gravitational center of a body, of a mass. All right, think of it as the center point of a mass. All right, the centroid. That centroid is changing. The population centroid is changing in the United States. For many years, you had the East Coast and the West Coast as major population centers, especially the East Coast, because that's where the 13 colonies started. But over time, those states, especially New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, these states are losing population. So they have to bring in illegal immigration and then get amnesty and then be able to keep funds in the state and be able to still have representation in Washington, D.C. But the reality is that these states have created so many obstacles for business, higher taxes, higher regulation, where industry has left. New York City has many different schools, good schools. New York State has good schools. It has Cornell, it has Stony Brook, it has NYU, it has Columbia. And many other universities. But the thing is that when the students get out of school and they want to be in an economy that actually makes things, not just a lawyer or just some sort of private equity guy, there's nowhere that these students can work because the industry left. The centroid is moving to the south. So you're having more job opportunities for ones that are in engineering, more job opportunities for ones that want to go into biotech, more job opportunities that want to be part of the new economy, especially in semiconductors and electronics. That's Arizona and that's Texas. There's also a shift to the south along the East Coast. So you're talking about North Carolina, South Carolina. You're talking about Georgia. So, but Texas is going to be a major, major shift where the jobs are. Now, this goes all the way back to the 1970s. Why, DrPaulCottrell? Are you talking about the 1970s now? There was always a flux between Detroit, between Michigan, and the automotive industry and the oil and gas industry. And people would go back and forth depending on the boom and bust cycles. So there were a lot of shifts that were going on between Michigan and Texas, Texas and Michigan. Just like there was lots of shifts between the population between California and New York and New York to California. But the thing is that California and New York are no longer viable economies because of the regulation, because of the taxation, because of the liberal bullshit. So what is happening is that kids, no matter where these younger adults that are coming out of college, to find the jobs, they can't stay in these liberal hellholes. They're going to shift to where the jobs are. Now, if you listen to Trump and where the manufacturing renaissance is happening, it's not in blue states. It's not in the East Coast. So these ones that are getting out of college and have real degrees that are in engineering or in some sort of STEM, they're going to be moving to these areas where the renaissance is taking place. And Texas and Arizona are going to be big ones. Another big one is going to be Kentucky and I think also Pennsylvania. So New York's going to lose population. New York is dead. It's dead. So if you don't believe me, then start listening to the business channels. And you're going to start hearing that, oh, students coming from Boston College, good college, can't get into the finance industry. Why? Because of AI. Don't need them. The entry-level positions are gone. But he wasted his degree on economics while he could have used that mathematical ability and been an engineer. But he thought that it was going to be the easy route. Another case in point, you have someone that's living in California in tech and can't get a job. Why? Because all the entry-level positions are taken away by AI. The students are going to start to realize that they have to make something. They have to be in the STEM and away from these liberal states. And a big benefactor of this is going to be Texas. And this is what this is all, this behind the scenes, this is the battle that's happening. Because the liberal states know that they're going to implode on their population. And so what the Democratic Party is doing is they're playing games. They're trying to play games to maintain power in Congress, because if they lose power in Congress, you're talking about liberal bullshit in the United States is going to end for the next 50 years.
Since they're going to be losing more seats in the coming censuses because people are fleeing the leftist ideology of New York, of California, of Illinois. They're coming to free states like Texas and Florida and Tennessee and others.
So what do you say, though, to Republicans who are worried about this? There are some out there that are in blue states, they're in swing districts. They're worried about if the blue states do ramp this up, they're going to lose their seats. One of them is Congressman Mike Lawler. He's a Republican out of New York. He says it creates a situation where you're going to lose blue state members, which over the long haul are critical.
This is why I canceled my DoorDash subscription and switched to cooking. After months spending way too much on DoorDash, I got bored of eating the same fast food meals and paying way too much.
Wait a minute. So let me get this straight. This millennial in this advertisement is making, is spending all their money on pre-made food wrapped up in plastic, which is bad because that's where you're going to get your nano and your microplastics in your food. You ingest it, and guess what? It gets to your brain and you have early onset of dementia. But you have millennials that don't even know how to cook. They don't know how to cook. And actually, they would save money if they cook. If they just buy the ingredients and cook. And they would say, well, wait a minute, I don't have time. Well, you can food prep. You can food prep. You can buy a glass container and food prep. They just can't take it anymore.
Cookie offers over 3, which over the long haul are critical to keeping the majority. It's all that Lawler said, mutually assured destruction once people go full throttle. So what about those seats possibly being tanked in blue states?
Well, as you may know, the law in New York, the law in California is very different than the law in the state of Texas. In the state of Texas, all it requires is an act of the legislature to do redistricting. In both New York and California, it requires a constitutional amendment based upon constitutional standards that already exist in their state. And that's why I say what these Democrat governors are saying is a lot of bluster, because not only do they not have the ability to remove very many Republicans, they also have no legal authority to be able to get this done in time for the same election cycle that Texas will be ready.
Yeah, they do have levers, but and we'll talk about with Governor Hochul about that. They do have time limits on when they can do these things. So there are procedures in place, and we'll talk about that with the governor. But I want to play something by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She used to serve there in the state legislature in Texas, now a rep here in Washington. She says this is about race. Here's what she says.
Right now, African Americans are only going to have 1/5 of the voting power that they should have in the state of Texas under this map. And we know that our Latino brothers and sisters will only have 1/3 of the voting power. And frankly, Asians, which tends to be one of the fastest growing demographics in the state of Texas.
Well, let me get this straight. Her assumption is that all blacks and all Latinos, so basically minorities, are voting Democrat. That's the implicit interpretation of her comment. Now, is that really the case? Is that really the case? Or is it that they are faking the numbers? There's no way that a race votes Democrat. I'm sure some people within that race will vote Republican or Independent or the Green Party or whatever, but it's not all going to the Democrats. What it is that the Democratic Party is petrified because their liberal agenda fails. It fails in terms of growing the economy. It fails in providing the ingredients in the society for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It fails in the terms of individualism. And what it's doing is it promotes collectivism. It promotes consolidation of power for the wealthy and the well-heeled. And the middle class gets the shit into the stick all the time. The Democratic Party has screwed America over. So it's now, people are going to start realizing that when you get out of college or when you are in mid-career and you can't find jobs in a Democrat state because they destroyed the job market, then people are going to say, well, maybe they should go to a Republican state. Maybe lower taxes and more incentive for businesses will lead to economic clustering so you have a better life. And I think that's what's happening in America right now. But look at those eyes. She thinks that if you change the districting in Texas, where it's more representative of a real census, not a fake census, then maybe the Democrats won't have so much power in Texas. See, what's the Democrats trying to do? They're trying to export liberalism out of California into a state that's vibrant, and that state's Texas. They're trying to import liberalism into Texas. And now the Texans, with their 10-gallon hats and their cattle and their oil rigs, they're going, we're not going to allow this bullshit to happen. And so Governor Abbott is pushing back. And I think he's doing a good job in doing that. The reality of the situation is the Democratic Party has been gerrymandering the districts in these states to hold power. And they know they wouldn't be doing this if the population was running towards them. The population is running away from liberal agenda. The population is running away from the Democratic Party. The population is running away from these states like New York and California. And they're running to states like Texas. They know this. That's the reason why they're fighting so hard. Because they know that if the redistricting takes place, if there's a real census X the illegal immigrants, that you're going to have more seats going to the Republican Party at the federal level. And when that happens, you're talking about changing the whole makeup of the country and undoing 35 years of ultra-liberal policy. And then America's back. America's is individual. It's about individualism. It's not about collectivism. But she wants to keep the districts the way they are. Because supposedly minorities vote in huge blocks. So she's saying, well, wait a minute. If we do this redistricting in Texas, based on what Abbott wants to do, and what Donald Trump wants to do, then there's going to be less representation for blacks or Latinos. But here's the problem with the Democratic Party. They've always viewed minorities as block voters. They don't view you as individuals. Why? Because they believe in collectivism. They believe that everyone is monolithic. If you're a black, you should be voting Democrat. Just because you're black. Even though the Democratic Party wanted slavery. History and logic is against the Democratic Party.
So what about that accusation?
Well, first of all, it would not be a day that ends in the letter Y if Jasmine Crockett didn't say something racist. The second, her facts are wrong, because the facts in the state of Texas are, under the maps that we are drawing, is that 4 of the new seats will be predominantly Hispanic seats. The problem that Democrats have in the state of Texas is Hispanics, black voters, and other voters, they have learned now that the ideas that Democrats stand for are contrary to the ideas that the Hispanic community and black community stand for. They all want secure borders. They don't want men and women's sports, and they want to support law enforcement. And so what we're finding is that these Hispanics now are voting for Republican.
Exactly. And this is the reason why Donald Trump won. Because the Democratic Party thought that the minorities would vote in a bloc because they believe in collectivism. You're monolithic. You're a black or you're a Latino, you vote Democrat. Well, what if you're a business owner and you want lower taxes? What if you want safe streets because your store keeps on getting robbed? No. You're a Latino, you have to vote Democrat. But I'm a business owner. No, you have to vote Democrat. But the Republican Party wants to have safe streets and fund the police and yada, yada, yada. No. You're a minority. You have to vote Democrat. See the problem with collectivism? And if you don't, then they'll burn down your town.
We saw that very prolifically in the last presidential election when Donald Trump won all 5 of the seats that we're going to be adding. So it's a proven fact that minority voters chose to vote for Trump as well as other Republicans, but they are trapped in one of these gerrymandered districts that confines it only to electing a Democrat. And the Democrats would say that they shouldn't be entitled to elect a certain member of a particular race, but instead let the voters of that district decide, regardless of their race. And they're going to find that Democrats are going to lose voters and Republicans will be picking up voters.
Well, Governor, we'll watch to see for a decision from your courts there in Texas, and those continued sessions you may be calling. We'll track it all. Thanks for joining us.
Remember the Alamo, all right? The centroid of the United States is moving away from the coasts and moving more inward. So it's going to be the Midwest, and you're talking especially the southern states that are going to be the new economy for the next 20 years. It's not going to be New York. It's not going to be California. I guarantee you that. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get lavender, and get the peppermint structural nano silver soaps. Very high quality. Get a few bars for your household. I also have it in charcoal tea tree and in lemongrass. Again, high quality structural nano silver soaps. Help with your health and wellness. And it helps support the work that I do. Use discount 5 and get $5 off any order. Also, a very important supplement to take is zeolite. Zeolite will detoxify your body. And by detoxifying your body regularly, it's going to improve your endocrine system and your immune system. Now, what is amazing about detoxification of your body is that when you do this, you're actually allowing for your body to heal, and you're going to notice that you're slowing down the aging process. People that have lots of toxins, and chemicals that are disrupting their endocrine system and their immune system, you're going to age faster. So it's part of a anti-aging protocol. But not just that. If you don't care about anti-aging, that's okay. You can still benefit from taking supplements that will help to detoxify your body. Zeolite is a very high quality detoxification. You take 3 small drops underneath your tongue and drink filtered water. And what that will do is the zeolite will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals, including forever chemicals. And what that will do is that it's going to help you to urinate that out within 6 to 8 hours, those chemicals and toxins. You do this every day, and your body is slowly getting cleansed. Some people prefer a heavier detox. Now, to do that, you want to take 10 small drops underneath your tongue and drink filtered water. And when you do that every day until the bottle is done, and do that once or twice a year. But I recommend to do it lower dose throughout the whole year. Another very important part to this is that make sure you drink filtered water, make sure that you stay away from processed foods, and clean your environment, your house. If you have chemicals in the cupboard, cleaning solutions, or paints, or pesticides, if you have to have them in your household, make sure you put them in a double layer. So you can go to like Container Store and you can put these items in a container and with a lid, and then put that container in a larger container and have it double layered. If you double layer it, you're reducing the degassing from these chemicals, because a lot of people don't realize your cleaning solutions, your pesticides in your house or in your garage or in your basement, you are slowly breathing that stuff in. You're slowly exposed to that. Even in small concentrations, but because you're in your house all the time, you're exposed to it for many hours of the day, every day. So the point here is that cleaning your environment and taking supplements like zeolite to detoxify your body are important features in getting your body in homeostasis. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. And lastly, a great stack is taking olive leaf extract. Dual purpose. Is going to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. It brings down inflammation and it helps to improve your total cholesterol. And probiotic, the powdered version that I have in stock right now, you mix it with filtered water or just soft foods like hummus. I mix it with my hummus for lunch. And with a good probiotic, you're improving your gut biome. You're going to be able to absorb your nutrients. It's going to improve your immune system. It's going to improve the communication between your gut and your liver and your gut and your brain. You're going to be able to sleep better, because with a better gut biome, you're able to get into those REM cycle and those deep sleep cycles for consolidation of memory and detoxification. In addition, by taking a probiotic, you're going to be improving your skin and your hair and your nails. You're going to sleep better. So please go to my store, get the probiotic, stack it with the olive leaf extract, and it's dual purpose. You're helping with your gut, and you're helping with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. All right, let's go to Andrew Cuomo. Warns the Democratic Party has lost its mind. But Cuomo really is a Democrat, running as an independent because he was thrown out of the primary with the mayoral race in New York City. Another mobster. But let's see what he has to say.
I know that we can get you up to speed, but can we get this thing to slow down once it gets there?
You're not going to stop anything with the brakes that you got.
And now to this, New York City socialist mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani blasting President Trump this week, saying he will be his, quote, worst nightmare. Mamdani's comment comes as his opponent, Andrew Cuomo, is denying reports he recently spoke to President Trump over the phone. So will the president weigh in on the race that's grabbing the nationwide attention? Joining me now to discuss this is the Federalist correspondent, Brianna Lyman. Brianna, thank you so much for being here. Do you think the president should weigh in on this race here in New York City? And would it actually help in defeating?
More or less bringing Fox News contributor
I think if President Trump weighs in, it actually helps Mamdani win. Obviously, Mamdani is not running against Donald Trump, but he wants voters to think that because Mamdani understands that socialism is still a hard sell for moderate Democrats. So he wants to make this a referendum on Donald Trump because if he can have voters' hatred of Donald Trump be louder than their doubts about socialism, that's an easier campaign strategy, right? Because when he's in the media, instead of defending socialism and communism, he'll be defending himself.
Why would you hate Donald Trump? He's rebooting economic clustering in the United States. He goes to the Middle East and gets over $1 trillion of FDI. He's bringing in about $50 billion a month in tariff revenue. You know what that means? It means less taxes and it means less debt financing. That's what tariffs mean. Now people would say, well, the price of goods are going to go up. Maybe a third, maybe a third. Most likely less. In some cases, maybe a little bit more. But maybe a third of what that tariff is. So if it's 35%, it's 35% divided by 3. Now pick any item that you buy. It's not that much money. It really isn't. So it's not that inflationary. It's actually more beneficial. Now think about it. If you have more debt being issued at the government level because of less tariff money coming in, you have to pay a coupon payment and the interest payments on that for 30 years or 10 years. Because most of this debt that is being financed is with a 10-year bond or a 30-year bond. So how much are you really paying in it with a 30-year bond or a 10-year bond compared to that one-time purchase with a certain item with a third of the tariff in the increase in the price? So I've done this calculation really quick. Now, if you buy a laptop at $1,500, your laptop is most likely going to end up costing you $1,625 or $1,675, somewhere in there. Is it that big of a deal? I guarantee you that your taxes to pay for the interest payments of a 10-year bond will be more than $175. That's the beauty of tariffs. Now, the business community, they don't want to hear that because 2/3 of the tariffs are being absorbed by the manufacturers and the retailers, not the consumer. 1/3 is going to be absorbed by the consumer. In most cases. So why does the Democratic Party, why does an American citizen want to demonize Trump? He's literally rebooting the manufacturing clustering, the economic clustering that we need that has been shipped away for the last 35 years. Well, he's closing the borders and he's trying to deport illegal immigrants. Well, they're here illegally, aren't they? Why, if you don't have a border, do you really have a country? Yeah, but why would you want to do it? Our country has been given a gift through Donald Trump, all right? He's eventually going to go away, and we're going to wish that he was back or someone like him that's pro-America, pro-manufacturing, pro-economy. Instead of these people that say, well, we can't do it. It's America, I can't. That's the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is America can't. But we need leaders that say America can. I can, not I can't.
Evil and mean Donald Trump. And it's particularly important as Cuomo kind of ramps up his involvement in this race, in that we want to make sure Mamdani is focused on defending socialism and communism and not defending himself against Trump. That way you see a complete contrast between him and Cuomo.
Well, it would seem former Governor Andrew Cuomo agrees with your assessment in that he is distancing himself from Cuomo. In fact, he's even saying, from President Trump, he's even saying that the president wants Mamdani to win. He doesn't want Mamdani to be defeated, and this is why Cuomo says, let's play this soundbite.
I could see him saying, I want the assemblyman to win because politically I can make a lot of points with him politically as evidence that the Democratic Party has lost its mind. And I can then exert more control over New York City because I can say that he is unfit and there's a crime problem and the federal government could come in like it did on LA.
Brianna, what do you make of his logic there?
Well, I think his logic about Donald Trump having more justification to step in if crime, God forbid, gets more out of control than it already is because of Mamdani, let's say, defunding the police. That's fair. But I still think Cuomo is missing the point here, is that Mamdani only wants to make this a referendum on Donald Trump so that he can prevent Cuomo from possibly, really making this a neck-and-neck race between Cuomo and Mamdani, right? Because if it is just...
Cuomo is a corrupt politician. He was kicked out of office when he was governor of New York. Not only that, there was a lot of issues with the way he handled COVID. Now, what's amazing here with Cuomo is he's trying to reboot his political career. If he doesn't win the mayoral race, he won't be able to use it as a launching pad for the presidential general election in 2028. That's the only reason why he's running. He's trying to resurrect his political career so he can run for the presidency. Because right now, everyone that's on the ticket for the Democratic Party that's potentially going to run for president are left-wing lunatics. The problem with Cuomo is that he's somewhat of a centrist in terms of his politic, but he acts like a mobster. I know this for a fact because of what he did with the nonprofits in New York City. He's a mobster. He's a corrupt politician, just like most politicians in general, especially coming from, Gotham. All right. So Cuomo is going to frame this in a way where it's not going to be a scholarly framing of the issue. He's always going to feel like he's the victim because he can't reboot his corrupt political career.
Between Mamdani and socialism and Cuomo himself, it's a tight call for moderate Democrats who don't like socialism. But if their hatred for Donald Trump is able to overpower their logical thinking, they'll choose Mamdani because he is more, abrasive towards Donald Trump than Cuomo is, at least right now.
Brianna, I want to get this in.
I'll tell you what.
This race
I will tell you what. Mamdani gets into New York City as mayor, and you're going to see the fall of New York City, just like it was the fall of London with their mayor that's running the show there. And what's going to happen is it's going to turn socialistic, and it's going to slowly move into a caliphate. Slowly move. Watch. New York City is going to turn slowly into a caliphate.
Spotlight on what Democrats are dealing with across the board, and that is their path forward and potential generational change. Some older members of Congress are facing young primary challengers. Do you think Democrats are able to unify before the next major election cycle, and will more candidates like Mamdani come to the forefront?
I think Democrats' ideas that generational change is going to be the solution to their problems is misguided, right? Because these younger generations are increasingly more progressive, more further left. This past election, we saw the entire country shift right. So there is no mandate for Democrats to double down on the failed policy positions of far-left progressives to try and claw back voters that they lost this go around. So I think if they swap out current Democratic leadership for younger and more progressive Democrats, they're going to continue down the same path they did in 2024.
It's fascinating. It's why the nation loves this race here and why it's so important. The New York City mayoral race, it can mean so much for where the Democratic Party is going. Brianna Lyman, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compline.
Not just that, New York City has always been the heartbeat of America. Some people would say the heartland of America would be the heartbeat, which would be the Midwest. No. From 1626, the year 1626 or 24, I think it's 26, that pulse of what we call America started, all right? And it's from Manhattan, all right? But if that heart is sclerotic, if that heart starts to age and starts to fail, then that heartbeat of America starts to fail. And if you inject socialism into the bloodstream of America, of capitalism, you're gonna cause heart failure, all right? And don't be surprised that America has a heart attack because of socialism. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get vitamin C and magnesium. This is a dual purpose supplement. It's going to help with your skin. It's also going to help with your immune system, and magnesium increases the efficacy of vitamin D3, and magnesium is super important for brain health. You are going to notice that within 5 years or now, people within your social community starting to get early onset of dementia. And I'm talking about, you can know people that are in their geriatrics, but you're going to start seeing people starting to have early onset of dementia in their 40s. Now, there's many reasons why. A big part of it is what we just went through in 2020. Now, I did a video a while back about why that is, and the probabilities and the 3 different cohorts that you're going to see that have this issue and why it's happening. I can't say it in this video because there'll be a strike in it. But I think if you read in between the lines of what I'm saying, then you will understand how important it is to protect your neurons. Magnesium, guess what? Protects brain function. Also, magnesium and zinc, great supplement to boost up that immune system and to help with brain function. You can stack them together. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the magnesium and zinc and the vitamin C and magnesium. Now, people would say, isn't it too much magnesium? No, it's not. All right. I also have deodorants for males and females. You can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, and in citrus. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas, very high quality ingredients, no baking soda, no aluminum in these deodorants. And these deodorants are dual purpose. You use it as a deodorant, so you smell good. But not just that. You use it to help to detoxify your body. And if you do this on a regular basis, you're going to notice that your endocrine system and your immune system is going to perform better. So please go to my store and get a couple bars of the deodorants. Very important. Okay, use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, I do give you a free gift. All right, now let's go to Lindsey Graham on NBC talking about there will be land swaps. We'll see. See what he's having to say here.
My mother and my grandmother and my great grandmother, my aunts as far back as I can remember, have always been nurses.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Senator Graham, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Let's start by talking about this meeting this upcoming Friday between President Trump and President Putin. President Putin saying he is demanding that he gets to keep some of that territory that he's illegally claimed without making any concessions. Senator Graham, is it a mistake to reward President Putin with a presidential level meeting without Moscow making any concrete or public concessions?
No, I'm very okay with President Trump meeting with President Putin in Alaska. So I was on the phone this morning, Christian, with our European allies, with the Ukrainians. I talked to Yermak this morning. The vice president was on the ground in Europe yesterday, listening to Ukraine and our European allies about what a good deal would look like. And the reviews about J.D. Vance are very, very positive all across the board. Everybody said that J.D. listened well, he understood sort of the red lines. And I think everybody knows that how this war ends can be a good thing or a bad thing. If it ends in a way, it looks like that Putin's overly rewarded, there goes Taiwan. You can't end a war without talking. I do hope that Zelensky can be part of the process. I'll leave that up to the White House, but I have every confidence in the world that the president is going to go to meet Putin from a position of strength, that he's going to look out for Europe and Ukrainian needs to end this war honorably, and it's time to end this war honorably. But how we do it will be historical, and I'm confident President Trump will get a good deal for all.
So, Senator Graham, you take me to my next question. Let's talk about the red lines and what a good deal would look like.
Yeah.
Let's look at the map right now, Senator, there. This is a map of Ukraine. You can see the areas in red currently under Russian control. Now, President Trump this week didn't rule out Ukraine having to give up some of its territory, something the Ukrainians have rejected. Do you believe that Ukraine should sign a deal that includes giving up any part of their territory, Senator?
Well, think about East Berlin and West Berlin as a way a conflict can be settled, at least for a period of time. North Korea and South Korea is in a state of truce. There's never been a final settlement. But I come on your show a good bit. I want to be honest with you. Ukraine's not going to evict every Russian, and Russia's not going to Kyiv. So there'll be some land swaps at the end. But what would a good deal look like? Make sure that 2022 doesn't happen again. On Biden's watch and Obama's watch, Russia invades. The goal for me, and I think President Trump, is to end it forever. Now, what would that look like? You'll have some land swaps, but only after you have security guarantees to Ukraine to prevent Russia from doing this again. You need to tell Putin what happens if he does it a third time. Pre-invasion sanctions that would crush his economy if he ever did this again. In 2022, we didn't help Ukraine at all. Biden didn't. Militarily, we need to keep Ukraine strong, keep flowing them strong and modern weapons, and security guarantees with European forces on the ground as tripwires to prevent a third invasion. We want to end this with a sovereign, independent, self-governing Ukraine and a situation where Putin cannot do this the third time without being crushed. This is really a dress rehearsal for Taiwan, and as do China. We had a good talk. I played golf with the president yesterday. Saturday was the 10-day deadline. China is very much on his mind. He can tell you the top 5 oil purchasers of Ukrainian oil. He knows who they are. And if this doesn't end well with Putin, everybody buying Russian oil and keeping his war machine going in Russia, you're going to pay a heavy price like India.
All right. Well, and I hear you saying what's happened under Biden's watch, but the attacks have only ramped up by Russia against Ukraine in recent weeks on President Trump's watch. But Senator, let me just read you something that you said back in 2023 as we talk about these potential land swaps that you're discussing. This was during your visit to Ukraine. You said, quote, "You don't end wars by giving territory to the aggressor. If Putin is not stopped here, he will keep going. And that increases the chances that there will be a war between Russia and NATO." Senator, if Russia is allowed to annex some of those regions, won't that effectively be a green light for Russia to go into and invade other countries?
What will stop the third war is to do things differently than we did in 2022. Is to keep arming Ukraine so that Russia will be deterred by the most lethal army on the continent of Europe right now, which is Ukraine. Security guarantees that if you come into Ukraine again, you'll be fighting more than just Ukraine. Having some European forces on the ground as tripwires, building up economic integration. The one thing that changed everything, in my view, is the minerals deal between us and Ukraine changed the relationship between the United States and Ukraine, and President Trump will defend those interests. East Berlin and West Berlin existed divided for a very long time. It wound up not being the case. So there's de facto recognition and de jure recognition. I'm not trying to tell you or anybody else that I think Ukraine can evict every Russian soldier. I am here to tell you that President Trump will end this war in a way to prevent a third invasion and not to entice China to take Taiwan. We're not out to humiliate Putin. We're out to get a deal to make sure there's no third invasion.
Senator, I have to ask you about the sanctions bill that has the backing of, frankly, more than 80 other senators. You have been putting off. Okay, there you go. You've been putting off bringing it to the floor for more than 4 months now. If this summit does not produce a ceasefire agreement, will you commit to bringing that bill to the floor?
I talked to the president about the bill. I think it will help him in court. His tariff policy is being challenged in court. If Congress creates a tariff regime, giving the president authority to set tariffs to go after people by Putin's oil, I think he's got a stronger hand legally. But he's doing everything the bill does. He put a 50% tariff on India for their buying Russian oil. He talked to me a lot about China. He talked to me about 2 other countries that buy Russian oil. So he's doing it through executive action, and I'm okay with that. But I stand ready to help the president. And when we get back in September, let's have this conversation.
Senator, I need to get to Gaza, but why punish India more than Russia?
More than Russia?
Shouldn't he be sanctioning Russia?
Well, the one thing I can tell you, Putin could give a damn about sanctions. He evades them. He could give a damn about how many Russians die. The one thing that he can't tolerate and live with if we go after his customers.
Yeah.
The whole goal is to crush his customers, India and China and Brazil. That if you keep buying Putin's oil and prop up his war machine, you will be denied access to our economy. This is a new strategy. Trump is all in terms of going after Putin's customers if we can't end this well. Without oil and gas revenue, Russia collapses.
Senator, I have to ask you about another issue that you are very focused on, the war in Gaza. We have 1 minute left. Israel announcing its plan this week to take over Gaza City.
Yeah.
World leaders have called the move a dangerous escalation, Senator. How long do you see Gaza being occupied? And quite frankly, who should control it after?
This is Israel's World War II. I can't believe we're having a discussion about how to fight a war against people in order to destroy you as a people, the Israeli people. So they will take Gaza militarily unless the hostages are released. Eventually, the Arabs will take over. The future of Palestine runs through Riyadh. The future of the Mideast runs through Riyadh. I envision after the defeat of Hamas that normalization will be back on the table between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and the Palestinians will benefit from that discussion as well as the Israelis. Enough already to destroy Hamas, do to Hamas what we did to the Germans and the Japanese during World War II, annihilate them and rebuild the Palestinian society like we did with Germany and Japan. I think we can do that.
Well, I know everyone is calling for those hostages to be released.
Yes.
We'll watch it closely in the coming days. Senator Lindsey Graham, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top story.
We're going to go to Mr. Wonderful, Shark Tank guy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this stack that's going to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Turmeric, very important to take. It's an antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals, reduce stress in the cell and in your vascular system. But turmeric also helps to bring down pro-inflammatory cytokines. When you have a chronic elevation of pro-inflammatory cytokines, that's immunosuppressive. So you want to bring that down. And by bringing that down, that's going to help with your immune system. Also, bringing down pro-inflammatory cytokines is going to help with arthritis. Bringing down pro-inflammatory cytokines that are chronic could help with bringing down inflammation at the brain level. So you get many benefits by bringing down chronic inflammation. Super important. So take turmeric, help with that immune system, and help with your cardiovascular system. Ashwagandha root helps to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. That will help to bring down inflammation and help with your vascular system. When you have a lot of blood glucose in your bloodstream or elevated cortisol levels, you're going to have issues with your vascular system. A lot of people don't realize elevated cortisol is related to having too much stress in your life. You're in a fight or flight response. Your body produces cortisol. And when you're chronically at elevated levels of cortisol, it's actually immunosuppressive. And elevated cortisol levels chronically is going to damage certain tissues and organ systems, including your vascular system. So when you're causing these micro damages at the vascular level, you're going to increase the chances of having plaque buildup. So you want to eliminate that. So by taking ashwagandha root, you're bringing down those cortisol levels and you're bringing down those blood glucose levels. And the other ingredient to the stack is lignans. Lignans will help to soak up free radicals. You're reducing oxidized LDL. You're reducing the buildup of oxidized LDL. By bringing down those free radicals, you're helping those cells, helping the mitochondrial health. You're increasing the ATP. And lignans will bring down inflammation. So that's going to help with the cardiovascular health. That's going to also help with your immune system. Lignans also helps with your endocrine system. So by taking the turmeric, the ashwagandha, and the lignans together, it's a powerful stack for your immune system and cardiovascular health. That's the reason why it's the third pillar of my core protocol. So please go to my store, get this stack, and help your heart health and your immune system. Another really great stack is the D3 and the K2. D3 and K2 taken together with calcium, with resistance training, is going to build denser bone over time. Your bone recycles every 5 to 7 years. And if you don't do resistance training and take supplementation to help with the bone matrix, you're going to lose bone slowly. So you start to lose bone, you start to get osteopenia, and then eventually osteoporosis. You want to stop that, and you have to take proper supplementation and do resistance training. Super important. But also taking K2 and D3 together will help to pull out some of that calcium depositing around plaque formation at the vascular level and reduce new calcium depositing. So it's going to help with your cardiovascular health too. Another great supplement to help with vascular system is nattokinase. Nattokinase will break up clots because it's fibrinolytic, and nattokinase will help to improve your lipid profile. It'll help to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. When you do that, you're reducing plaque formation. So you can stack the nattokinase, the K2, and the D3 together for a vascular stack. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5, get $5 off any order, spend $100 or more, and you get a free gift until supplies last.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform
So just how much will AI shape America's job market? I asked Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful himself from Shark Tank, one of the most recognizable investors in the world. He also talked about the dark side of AI and if he's worried about AI taking middle-class jobs.
No. The phobia people have over AI is nonsensical. I mean, it's going to make mundane jobs obsolete. That's the power of this technology. So no, embrace AI. Don't freak out about it.
Many of the AI headlines that dominate are about the dark side of AI. And for example, we just spoke to an attorney recently representing a family in Texas that says an AI chatbot encouraged their teenage son who has autism to kill his parents. It also brought up the idea of self-harm as a way to cope with sadness. These examples are really scary to a lot of people. Are they alarming to you? And what needs to change to prevent this while still keeping us competitive in this global marketplace?
That's a horrific story, and there's always going to be horrific stories like that. But that is not just the purvey of AI. Lots and lots of issues, but that's not enough to stop this train of technology, which is going to be such a powerful thing. And I might add, and this is a pretty sobering thought, the country that has the most advanced AI and the most data centers will win militarily. So I hope it's a democracy that ends up leading the advance in AI, not a communist country. And I'm talking about China.
We see President Trump saying yesterday the Biden administration overestimated the jobs reports data on purpose. Of course, these comments come less than a week after Trump fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner. Do you have any thoughts on Trump's claim that the administration knowingly overestimated jobs data?
You know, I don't think he should have whacked the commissioner. I think that job's just a bean counter. And do I think that those numbers are somehow politically altered? No. We've been collecting that data since the Second World War. Do I think it could be done more efficiently so we didn't have massive revisions like we had in that last sprint? Yes. Why is it coming by mail in the internet age? I mean, that's crazy. With AI, couldn't it be done better? Can't they make the data sets come faster, sooner, and more accurate? Well, that's something I'd like to see. And if that's the outcome of the whacking, okay. But no, I don't think Biden did anything with that data.
Let me ask you very quickly about Bitcoin. What is your one-year target price for Bitcoin? Where do you see it at?
I mean, you're making me forecast, but I'm happy to do it. In a year from now, if somehow this act got approved in the next, call it 6 months, a year from then, 250,000 for Bitcoin. That's what I think.
I appreciate that prediction. Mr. O'Leary, we asked viewers what they would love to hear from you, so they sent in some questions. Here are some of them. Would you, Mr. Wonderful, consider running for president?
Oh, you know, I'm so busy doing what I'm doing, and I really think that it's taken me an investment lifetime to understand the difference between the signal and the noise and how to work with politicians. I'm very...
Wait a minute. I thought he was a Canadian. Now, let me just look at that for a second. Because if he's a Canadian, if he was born in Canada, he can't be president. Kevin O'Leary. Yeah, Canadian businessman. Where was he born? Canadian. He was born in Quebec in 1954. So he can't be president of the United States. It's unconstitutional. So just skip to the next question.
Very proud that I'm able to, as an ambassador of the American dream for entrepreneurship, I'm so lucky to go to the Hill.
Maybe the question was being president of Canada or prime minister of Canada. Maybe that's what she meant.
He's going to be invited into red and blue. I mean, what? Even Elizabeth Warren, even AOC want to create jobs. And
Wix, one platform, any website, unlimited creation. Describe your needs and goals.
Want to create jobs.
And I'm that guy. I'm the advocate for small business in America. I've come to realize that the number one export of America is not technology or energy, it's the American dream, and I am that ambassador all around the world.
Well, I don't know if he would fit the bill, but do you think that fellow shark Mark Cuban should run? Would you vote for him?
I know Mark very well. I think he's a fantastic operator. I don't know if he's going to do it. He's had the opportunity already, but that's a soul-searching question, not just for him, for his family. I got a lot of respect for him. I mean, he understands business. Now, if the party reached out to him and he somehow decided he was going to do it, he'd be a hell of a candidate. I support anybody that supports business. I have to answer that way. Anybody that supports the American dream. And that's why I recently said I need to meet with this new mayor of New York, because I don't get it.
Yeah, what would you say to him if you came face to face with him?
Well, I plan to. I mean, look, New York's like its own country. As for an investor, it's one of the capital of the world. You think about New York, London, Abu Dhabi, Zurich. I mean, that's where all the money is. And so I would want to sit down with him. I've asked for a meeting already and say, look, I'd love to help you on this affordable housing thing because I'm a developer. But if you tell me before a building's even built that you're going to put rent control on it, there is no way any capital is going to build that building. So can you explain that to me, how that's going to work? Because what you're telling me right now is I'd rather invest it in Florida or Tennessee or North Dakota, South Dakota.
I want to have a conversation with you after you have that conversation with him, and I want to know how it goes. I want to get to.
If he doesn't take the meeting with me or any other investors, that tells you a lot.
You've said that on Shark Tank, before the pitch even begins, as they are standing in front of you, you know whether they are winners or losers. What are you looking for?
Aura. The ability for you to project your aura in a room where you haven't even spoken a word yet. Successful entrepreneurs have that.
What does that mean? Is that eye contact? Or what does that mean?
It's very much how you stand, how you're dressed, how you imagine in the context of Shark Tank, and I've done this thousands of times, thousands. The way Shark Tank works that you don't see because they walk out onto the carpet and the floor producer says to the entrepreneur or their team, hold, 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 while the Steadicam gets the shot of them standing there and their products behind them, which you eventually see in the edited show. But that can take up to 90 seconds. I'm right in front of them. I just look at them straight on. I don't blink, I don't smile, I just look at them. If they can't take that, if they can't deal with that and push back and show that they're ready for what's about to happen to them, I mean, imagine, they're in front of, this isn't practice anymore. This is the real deal. You got the 26 cameras rolling. You got $1 billion worth of capital in front of you 12 feet away. This is your moment. And the lights are shining and you're about to start. If you can't handle someone staring at you, you don't have it.
Is there one common pitfall that you feel is keeping Americans poor that drives you crazy? Is it the coffee run? Is it the expensive DoorDash delivery? What is it that you look at and it just drives you nuts?
The biggest mistake you make in your mid-20s is you buy you don't need. Our whole society is driven in marketing to sell you you don't need. Right. Look at all that crap. Even you, look at your closet and all the crap you bought. That you the point is, next time you pick something up in a store, ask yourself, do I need this? The answer 75% of the time is no, you don't need that. And you know you don't need that. Take that cash and put it into Beanstocks or some other app. And then watch on your phone your net worth grow as the market provides the returns over your lifetime. Even if you only make $70,000 average income and you take that 15%, you'll retire $1.5 million in the market. You look at the last 200 years, it's provided those kind of returns. It goes up and down, up and down. But don't buy crap you don't need.
I'm going to have a little Mr. Wonderful on my shoulder the next time I'm about to check out my Amazon cart. just yelling at me.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the supplements that you do need to slow down the aging process, and so you'll have more vitality. Good night formula, super important. Why? It has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. It's going to help to detoxify your central nervous system. It's going to help you to consolidate memory, and you're going to be well rested when you wake up. Take it every night. Guess what? By doing this, you're going to slow down the aging process. Super important. Pay attention. Now to about 5 years from now, many people within your social circle, you're going to start seeing early onset of dementia. You better start paying attention to help mitigate that. And I'm telling you how to do it. Also take ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is super important. It's the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can take. Most people that take CoQ10, guess what? You're taking the wrong kind. There's nothing better than what I have on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Ubiquinol is going to soak up free radicals. It's going to help to reduce stress in your cell. It's going to help the health of your mitochondria. You're going to have more ATP, and ubiquinol protects neurons. Guess what? That's going to be important. Stacker with Goodnight formula is a great stack. And clarity factor helps you to get rid of that brain fog so you can concentrate. It's going to help support memory. Over time, with learning new things, taking the proper supplementation like clarity factor, you're going to have better dendritic connections. You're going to think faster. You're going to sleep better. You're going to have better memory recall. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor. So a great neural stack, clarity factor, ubiquinol, Goodnight formula. Use discount 5 and get $5 off any order. Now, no matter what the season is, if you have an irritation in your throat, guess what? Better start taking the lozenges and the drops that I have. Elderberry zinc, get 21 in each bag. The drops, you get 100 in each bag. You can get it in blueberry, in honey and lemon, and in cherry flavor. Guess what? You get 100 in each bag. Get a few bags for your household. Why? Because if you have that irritation and you don't take care of it, you're going to have further problems with your respiratory. So it's really important to mitigate it right away. If you get sick, let's say 3 times a year, it takes even if it's benign, even if it's mild, and it lasts for 5 to 7 days, it takes 2 to 3 weeks for your body to heal. So if you are getting sick 3 times a year, approximately 9 weeks out of the year, you're either healing or sick. Well, that's a big part of the year. And now you would know why, over time, you age faster when you have chronic illness, chronic sickness, even if there is periodic throughout the year. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer. I also have structural nanosilver toothpaste. It helps to whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help with the health of your gum line, reduce inflammation at the gum line. This has no fluoride. It's the best toothpaste that you're going to buy. Get a few tubes of this toothpaste for your household. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, get $5 off. You spend $100 or more on an order, you get a free gift until supplies last.
A day that starts with a walk, includes deep work, and ends with friends and a workout. That's the goal. You just need the right system to get there. You know that?
The question, of course, is whether Zelensky gets to attend. And of course, if the White House pushed Zelensky coming, how does the Russian side take that? Because there's been a lot more skepticism on the Russian side about Zelensky being present at a meeting. Putin has at times not even acknowledged Zelensky's status in terms of as leader of Ukraine.
Donald Trump will hold talks with Vladimir Putin in Alaska for Ukraine this Friday. The White House is reportedly weighing up inviting Ukraine's president too, with a White House spokesperson saying all three could yet attend together. Well, every Sunday at this time, I'm joined by one of the Times' brilliant journalists stateside for a roundup of all the political news from Washington, D.C. And today, I'm delighted to say that the hardest working woman in Washington, the Times' Washington editor, Katie Balls, is here. Good afternoon, Katie. Good morning to you.
Good morning from DC.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here, Katie. Good Lord, where do we even start? I mean, I guess we have to start with the Ukraine talks. So what we do know so far, we know that Trump and Putin are definitely meeting in Alaska on Friday. We think maybe Zelensky might be coming along now. What more do we know?
Well, yes, I think a great update. So they picked Alaska, and that does mean, of course, this meeting, which Trump has wanted to arrange, I think, really since he returned to the White House. Of course, if we go back to just before he returned to the White House, his campaign for 2024, he was talking about fixing the Ukraine conflict in a day. That has not happened. We're just over 200 days in. But this meeting has always been seen as quite key to getting to a point where you can start to work out what a settlement, what end to the conflict, use inverted commas where necessary on some of these things, might start to look like. And I think to have it in America on home turf, allowing Donald Trump to announce it and so forth, has been something the White House already sees as an achievement. The question, of course, is whether Zelensky gets to attend. And of course, if the White House pushed Zelensky coming, how does Putin, how does the Russian side take that? Because there's been a lot more skepticism on the Russian side about Zelensky being present at a meeting. Putin has at times not even acknowledged Zelensky's status in terms of as leader of Ukraine. So that's where it starts to get more complicated. The meeting between Putin and Trump, in theory, is the first step to then a period of brokering peace. And then the UK has had a bit of this in terms of some of these talks, because of course we have J.D. Vance in Chevening staying with David Lammy, and then yesterday J.D. Vance on the US side decided to have meetings at David Lammy's house, his Grace and Favour house, and had various EU figures visit them.
I'll come back to the Chevening bromance weekend in a sec, Katie, but I just wanted to ask you, just on the Ukraine talks before we move on. I mean, Europeans are very concerned, European leaders are very concerned that this meeting, even on Friday, might end with a bit of a carve-up of Ukraine. I mean, how likely do you think it is that it will get that far in this first meeting between Trump and Putin?
Well, the truth is, it's just hard to know how much they're going to get done in this meeting, because we go back, then Putin and Trump met once in their first term. I think at that meeting, some of the things Trump said raised eyebrows on the American side. You also have Steve Witkoff as envoy, who's been visiting Russia. Often Witkoff does not bring the full official team that some would have expected the US peace negotiator to bring. So I think that what you can say, there's a lack of formality and a level of unpredictability when it comes to this administration and how they're dealing with Putin, which means it's quite hard to work out how much is going on. Some of DC were not, senior figures were surprised that Witkoff came back this week, and actually there was enough progress to get this meeting. So I think people are a little bit just seeing how it goes. But to the point about a carve up or land, it does feel as though every scenario that the White House has been talking about or thinking about does involve Ukraine ceding some territory. The question is that territory free? This Ukraine also more like Crimea, or is it actually about where things are in terms of the current battlefield? And at that point, is it because it's a frozen conflict, or are you renaming the territory? So there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we'll find out more on Friday. Katie, as you mentioned, J.D. Vance, the Vice President, has spent the weekend with our Foreign Secretary. We know that David Lammy was planning to put some pressure on J.D. Vance to soften the US position on Gaza. We know now that they also discussed the details of the Alaska summit yesterday. It's not exactly light material for a weekend away, is it? J.D. Vance has been adamant that the position won't shift on Palestine. I mean, what inroads on both of these subjects do we think Lammy might have been able to make over the course of the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange version of a holiday. I had someone in DC described it to me as a busman's holiday that J.D. Vance is currently on, in the sense that he was obviously staying, and I think J.D. Vance wanted to stay with David Lammy. Of course, he goes to the Cotswolds next, but I think for the whole time he is here, he has various meetings, potentially leaders of other political parties, potentially with other political figures he's interested in, cultural sites and so forth. But I think it's going to test at least lots of people in Britain's definition of what a holiday looks like, I believe, in the coming week. But as for these talks, I mean, I think David Lammy and JD Vance have a good personal relationship, but that's not because they share the same views on Palestine, freedom of speech, even the economy to a degree. I think they bond over their Christianity, I think their upbringings and so forth. So I think staying with the Foreign Secretary for several days, of course, means David Lammy is in a good position to explain the UK side on Palestine when it comes to Israel's talking about governing Gaza and obviously the UK position on recognising the Palestinian state. I suspect JD Vance's views and the administration views are far too clear on this for Lammy to have much of a chance at changing it. I think the area where probably the UK can influence more is more humanitarian aid and getting that into Gaza. Then I can't currently see any situation where the US would say, oh, let's recognise Palestine as a state. I think they see it unhelpful what the Europeans have done here, but perhaps in a sign of the good relationship between the US and the UK, they're more happy publicly criticising Emmanuel Macron and France for this than the UK.
Yeah, interesting. Katie, you've got a great piece in the Sunday Times today about possible successors to Trump. I can't actually believe it's that time again and we're already talking about the 2028 election. Good Lord. But I guess, you know, it is something which, you know, people in DC are probably always thinking about. You write about two of the potential frontrunners from a field of what could potentially be 30, Marco Rubio and, of course, JD Vance. Could that be a potentially popular ticket together?
Well, I think, could it be popular and is it doable, the two questions? And you are right, 2028 is very far away. So I myself pondered this. Is it too early? But
never too early.
Donald Trump has been talking about it this week. He was asked about it at an event and started talking about Vance's a likely heir apparent, but did not go all the way. And then JD Vance was asked about it in the evening, and it was the one topic, we're talking about the things he was talking about, it was the one topic where he suddenly was quite camera shy. Which I think is always, as a journalist, okay, if you don't want to talk about that, let's look into it. And I think when it comes to that ticket, I think it's Donald Trump's way of saying JD Vance has a chance, but it's not completely his yes. Let's talk about this other person in the cabinet who's doing well. I think that you can see some appeal to the ticket if you're thinking about the states they represent. So you have Ohio, you have, Rubio's a Miami man, and both did not come from rich backgrounds. So you think about how the Republicans have made inroads with working class voters in recent years. There's something there potentially. But I suspect actually getting the two men to agree to a joint ticket would be quite hard to do. And I was speaking to a biographer of Rubio and also some around Rubio. And I think once you run for president, which he did in 2016, of course, you do start to get it in your head that you could be president. And therefore, would you really be happy to say, okay, yes, I'll be the vice? Because Rubio and Vance competed previously to be vice president for Donald Trump. So I think that is one of the complications with this. There are some who would suggest that, do you want to have a man and a woman on the ticket? That can often help with female voters, though, of course, in the 2024 campaign, they focused a lot on the male vote and had success there. I put it to a few figures in MAGA and they suggested I was being woke for asking the question.
Well, I was going to ask that, Katie. I mean, are the days of thinking that a ticket should, I don't know, maybe involve a woman? Are those days long gone now?
Well, I think the way people look at it is changing. And of course, Donald Trump won the election not having him as the pick. And you did have figures around to say, oh, your campaign's a bit lavish, Vance isn't cutting through in the way we thought. But also the whole campaign was focused a little bit on the manosphere. If you think about lots of those podcasts Donald Trump did, and really cutting through with voters, Hispanics, they also made large inroads with lots of different men who didn't traditionally vote Republican. So I think from the Republican perspective, at least, it is not seen as something which is really going to move it either way in a negative or positive way. So, but other mega figures, things worth saying is that they believe that when it comes to the number of people who are going to go for 2028, you're looking at potentially 30 or more contenders. And they said you've got to remember nearly every person in the cabinet, probably every person thinks they could be the next president. So I think the idea of anointing them. And then I spoke to Steve Bannon, of course, a senior figure in MAGA world, and he was saying, actually, no, the person who's going to win this is Donald Trump. So we're just going to work out how he can run again. So there's 31 options for you.
Thank you. We look forward to whittling it down over the course of the next 3.5 years, Katie. My two quick questions before we let you go, Katie, is how hot is it? I've spent several Augusts in DC myself. How hot is it? And is your air conditioning up to scratch?
It is really hot. It was slightly cooler for a few days this week. So, but I've got quite addicted to the air conditioning. As someone who was born in Aberdeen, I find that the very hardcore air conditioning makes me feel like I'm at home. if I let imagine I'm outside.
Well, the storms are quite amazing outside. You can watch a lot of heavy rain and be very cold inside. So it will be just like home for you, Katie. Wonderful. That's Katie Balls, who is, of course, the Washington editor for The Times. And you can read all of her work today in the Sunday Times.
All righty. We're going to go to, is London actually in decline, by TLDR News. We'll try that podcaster. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Collagen is a dual purpose product. It's a powder. You mix it with soft foods, filtered water, or smoothie, or even just with milk. Take it every day. Do some resistance training. It's going to help with your musculature, your bone density, the health of your joints and your cartilage, help with your skin, your hair, and your nails. Dual purpose product, you should be taking it every day. Also, if you take vitamin C and drink 64 ounces of water throughout the day, or 32 ounces if you can't drink 64 ounces throughout the day, but drink filtered water and take the vitamin C that's from my store, it's going to cross-link with the collagen and improve your dermal layer. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. A great stack is taking the omega-3. This is going to help with your cardiovascular health. It's going to bring down systemic inflammation and help with your lipid profile. That will reduce the chances of plaque buildup. And digestive enzyme complex. This helps with your pancreatic health, helps to break down carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, allow you to absorb your nutrients. If you're 40 years of age or older, you need to take care of your pancreas. So take the digestive enzyme complex, take it every day to help break up those proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. If you are an athlete, this will also help you with your pre or your post-workout fueling to help break up that and allow you to absorb. So taking the digestive enzyme complex is going to help with your pancreatic health, and the omega-3 is going to help with your cardiovascular health. And lastly, getting the gels. I have it in a tube form and also in a quick dispenser. It's a dual purpose product. You can use it as a daily skincare. You can use it as an aftershave. If you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well, put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your nose, around your ears, around your eyes. Lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours. If you have a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn, put it on. It'll help to heal it quicker. So it's a dual purpose product. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
World famous sports stadiums, massive concert venues, internationally recognizable architecture, and most importantly, a lot of pubs. To many, this is what attracts them to the British capital. However, at home in Britain, London's reputation is somewhat different. It's often thought of as a city with sky-high rent, unaffordable living costs, rising crime, and slow public transport. In the last few months, some figures on the right of British politics have lent into this narrative, variously branding London a murder capital, lawless, or simply a city in visible decline. So, in this video, we're going to have a look into these claims and take a look at whether London is actually in decline. You ever wondered how much money TLDR makes each year, or who's funding our journalism? Well, we think transparency is super important. So we answered both questions in our recent video. It's linked in the description. Let's start by having a look at the claims about London being on the decline. One of the claims made most often.
This is why I canceled my DoorDash subscription and switched to cooking. After months spending way too much on DoorDash, I got bored of eating the same fast food meals and paying way too much for them. Community offers over 300 weekly meal options offered by over 80 celebrity chefs, straight to your door, fresh, never frozen. Not only that, but these meals literally taste amazing. It's actually like you're eating at a restaurant or ordered DoorDash, except it's way cheaper. So far, I'm loving Mark Borgiani's red wine short ribs, Esther Choi glazed flank steak with udon noodles, and Jose Garza's braised short ribs mac.
One of the claims made most often, as we mentioned in the intro, is that London is riddled with crime. Nigel Farage, the leader of the party, Reform UK, currently dominating in the polls, wrote a post only last week claiming that if you were visiting London tomorrow, you wouldn't wear a Rolex, and claimed no street is safe. This has become a talking point often used by outlets such as GB News, with one presenter claiming that London is becoming lawless and falling apart under Sadiq Khan, the London Mayor's embarrassing guidance. Relatedly, we've also seen a number of criticisms related to London's transport network. Nigel Farage, for instance, has criticised cycle lanes that no one uses. Matt Goodwin, a right-wing commentator, wrote a long post on X, largely trashing the London transport network, complaining of a 40-minute delay on the train getting into the capital, the price of his ticket, and the lack of English skills of people who use the towns on the tube. All of this led him to conclude that London is over. It's so over. In fact, the right had even started to complain about the cost of rent in London, a topic that's usually more in the wheelhouse of those on the left. Specifically, towards the end of June, Robert Jenrick posted a video to his X account claiming that this was made worse by mass migration. He's not the first to make this claim, nor is he the first person to point out just how expensive it is to rent in London. It does, though, build into the narrative developing on the right that London is, quite simply, getting worse. So, is this the case? Well, let's have a look into these claims. Let's start with crime, as this is by far and away the most significant criticism that's been levelled against London. Knife crime is an issue that the capital has struggled with for years, and the data largely shows that it's a problem it's still struggling with. A report from the House of Commons Library shows that, apart from the West Midlands, London is the worst area in England and Wales for these kind of offences. London's robbery rate is a massive 6.72 times higher than the national average, and theft from the person, which is similar but doesn't involve force, is a whopping 23 times higher. Bicycle theft specifically is 2.51 times higher than the national average. However, other serious crimes like violent and sexual offences, possession of weapons offences, and criminal damage and arson offences all occur at lower rates than the rest of England. And like the rest of the country, London's overall crime rate has been falling relatively steadily in recent years. London's murder rate, for instance, has fallen significantly since the early 2000s, and London's so-called crime risk score, which is calculated by looking at the amount of crime in the city and weighting the more serious crimes more highly, has been improving over the last decade. So, how come so many people feel London is becoming a crime-ridden crisis zone? Well, it might be in part because while crime rates and violent crime rates are indeed down, some of the more visible crimes like shoplifting and snatch theft have become more common in recent years. According to data analysis by John Byrne-Murdoch at the Financial Times, rates for both crimes have more than doubled since 2019. All in all, while London's overall crime rate is higher than the rest of the UK, that's always been the case, and it's trending down. Nonetheless, this general sense that London is progressively getting more unsafe might be driven by a rise in certain crimes, most notably knife crime and theft. So let's move on and have a look at transport. Now, this is something that London is known for, with an estimated 4 million journeys being taken each day on the tube alone. Since the completion of the Elizabeth line in 2022, it's gone on to be the busiest single operator in the UK, and was rated positively by 55% of Londoners. More generally, people using Transport for London services consistently say that they're satisfied with it, and public transport has become more popular in recent decades. Now, this isn't to say that transport in London is cheap, nor is getting into London cheap, but it's sometimes easy to overlook how well connected the city actually is. When it comes to cycle lanes, London has seen its cycleway quadrupled since 2016, from a mere 90 kilometres of cycleways to more than 360 kilometres. Along with this expansion, we've seen the number of cyclists in London also expand, with a 70% increase since 2016 and a 50% increase since just 2022. Although cycling still remains a relatively niche way of getting around, accounting for less than 5% of trips in 2023. All in all, it looks like London's...
Imagine bringing your side project to life just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want and watch it take shape.
All in all, it looks like London's transport infrastructure is pretty good. And finally, housing. Now, rent in London is obviously incredibly expensive, with the average asking rent price per month being roughly £1,300 higher than the rest of the UK. Over the last 15 years, the rental price in London has risen by 83%, an average of about 5.5% per year. Altogether, this makes London the 8th most expensive city in the world to live in. Now, the only thing that should moderate any of this is the fact that wages have also increased in the past 3 years, making rental pricing a little more affordable. In 2022, rental prices were 20% higher relative to 2010, taking into account wage increases. Right now, it's about 15%, a decrease of about 5 points. All in all, while renting in London and housing costs more generally are clearly stupidly high, this isn't a new phenomenon. So, all in all, clearly, while some of the criticisms of London do hold up, on the whole, things are improving. In other words, London certainly isn't over. Everything we've discussed in today's video plays into a broader sense of uncertainty in the world at the moment. And who's so often in the middle of all that? Well, the United States. So in the next issue of our magazine, Too Long, we're discussing this geopolitical shift and whether we're currently observing the end of the American order. In that section, we discuss everything from the collapse of democratic norms in the US to the decline in American soft power, to issues with the US economy or the battle for universities, before discussing who could potentially take over in a post-America world. So if you want to find out what we really think, now's your chance. It's not just the US though. This issue is our longest ever at 78 pages, full of our very best journalism and analysis. So we also get into why Germany's military might is growing, if Farage could become the UK's Prime Minister, why countries are outsourcing their migrants, why the global order is collapsing with Professor James Kerr-Lindsay, and why leaders like Putin and Netanyahu seem to be getting away with it. The magazine has now been officially published, so if you order a copy today, we'll ship it to you as soon as we can. Or if you select the digital edition, we'll send a digital version of Too Long straight to your inbox. Plus, if you want the best deal, make sure that you subscribe to Too Long. That way, not only do you get every issue going forward, you'll also get 20% off every copy as long as you're a member. On top of that, this week only, if you use code LASTCHANCE20, you'll get an additional 20% off this copy, bringing down the cost from £9.99 up.
I think what is interesting is that podcast also has a magazine, so you can dive in, kind of like a Business Week, very similar. But it's on politics, but let's go to DW on European leaders say no to Trump, Putin peace deal without Ukraine.
European leaders have rejected changes to international borders through the use of force, saying this would only reward Russian aggression. In a joint statement, 6 countries and the European Commission said they welcomed President Trump's initiative, but they said the path to peace cannot be decided without Ukraine, and that meaningful negotiations can only take place following a ceasefire or reduction of hostilities. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he fully supports the joint statement.
Today has been an active diplomatic day. Since this morning, I've been coordinating with our partners Britain, France, Finland, Estonia, Denmark, and Spain. I thank them all for their clear support. There must be a just end to the war, and it is up to Russia to do so. It is Russia that must end the war it started.
For more, let's cross over to DW correspondent Christine Munwa in Brussels. So European leaders, Christine, have issued a statement in support of Ukraine. What kind of signal do they intend to send to Washington and Moscow?
That's right, Michael. And that statement we received late into the night, Saturday going into Sunday. It comes after representatives from France, Germany, Poland, Italy, Finland, the United Kingdom, and of course, a representative from the EU Commission had met. And the message they want to send is that there cannot be any solution about Ukraine without Ukraine being at the table. The fear on the part of the European leaders is that Ukraine is again being excluded from crucial talks where Ukraine should actually be represented. There is also European security interests in this conversation as well. And part of that statement reads that while we share that a diplomatic solution must protect Ukraine's and Europe's vital security interests, what is meant by that is that there needs to be robust and credible security guarantees for Ukraine in this. This has been a long-standing call on the part of European leaders that any ceasefire must come with security guarantees for Ukraine. In short, that means it must come with some level of assertion from the United States that they would come in to support if Russia were to threaten another invasion when a ceasefire has been reached. This is something that the Europeans with the United Kingdom have been pressing for the Ukrainians to do. In the UK, they call it a backstop, that the Americans provide this backstop to be able to get in the event that Russia threatens another invasion.
According to media reports, European and Ukrainian officials have presented Washington with a counter-proposal to Russia's ceasefire plan. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, so the officials are not confirming this, but there have been, as you rightly quote, some people being quoted unofficially in media outlets. What the Europeans are putting forward is supposedly a proposal that says no, nothing in terms of developments, swapping territories should be done until there is a ceasefire. And this would really confirm or is consistent with what has been the long call from European leaders, that there must be a ceasefire, that no other processes should take place in terms of discussing the swapping of territory, as was touted by the President of the United States, that none of this should happen before there is a ceasefire. And again, I'll say this has been consistent with what European leaders have been calling for, even a temporary ceasefire to get talks happening at the table. Again, we've had no confirmation of that officially, but it would be consistent with what European leaders have been calling for.
Christine, as you well know, for months, European leaders labored to bring Donald Trump around to their position on Ukraine. But as it looks now, the EU won't participate in that Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska. How likely is it Europe will be left out of peace talks altogether?
Well, Michael, there is that real threat, and it's not the first time we're at this point where the Europeans are fighting for a place in this conversation, for a seat at that table, so to say. In February already, when there was talks being touted between the presidents of the United States and Russia, already the Europeans were being sidelined. Now, the Europeans do welcome the Trump administration putting the US leadership forward in all of this. It is the aspect of being sidelined that concerns them. Of course, Europe has a big stake in this conflict. It and the United Kingdom and other G7 countries have been very big supporters, not only militarily for Ukraine, but also in keeping the country running in the 3-year duration of this war. I'm talking about government services and other support, and of course, the number of Ukrainian refugees that happen to be in Europe at the moment. So Europe has been vying for the United States to recognize it as a constructive and helpful partner in the negotiations. There has been that reluctance from the part of the US administration, but they will continue to push for that because they also believe that they're firmly supporting the Ukrainian position as well.
Got it. That's a DW correspondent, Christine Mundwa in Brussels.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. Myotrol will help to provide the gene expression that you need to build muscle and maintain muscle. Do resistance training, take the Myotrol. It has polyphenols, lignans, and flavonoids to help with that gene expression, to build muscle, and to maintain muscle. This is very important if you're 40 years of age or older, so you don't atrophy and you maintain that muscle mass. Super important for males and females. Resveratrol. Resveratrol will soak up free radicals, reduce stress in the cell, help with youthful gene expression, get rid of cells that are in senescence, and resveratrol helps with the health of the mitochondria. Very important to take. It stacks really well with C60, NAD+, ubiquinol, clarity factor. It's a great supplement. So please go to my store and get the resveratrol. Get the myotrol that will help to build that muscle. Now, myotrol with resveratrol together, you're helping to build the muscle and maintain the muscle and help with the mitochondrial health. And resveratrol is an antioxidant, and it's an anti-ager, and it helps with youthful gene expression. A lot of people don't understand that when you get older, your genes start to methylate, and when you start to methylate, you're reducing or shutting off certain types of gene expression. You want to kind of reverse that, reduce that methylation of those genes. So taking these together is really important for helping with the musculature. So please go to my store, get the myotrol and the resveratrol. Okay. Now let's listen to Martin Wolf. Martin Wolf, I actually have met a couple times in my life. Back in 2014, 2016, somewhere in there.
Every production line is powered by pros. The part we play, equipping them with the products and pro support to succeed. Because your machines are nothing without their team.
What's happening is a return to regionalism. Well, some people can argue we never really had pure economic globalization.
Of
because
course.
countries tend to trade mainly.
Well, countries tend to trade, but that's for good economic reasons. The gravity equation is very powerful. Do most of your trade with countries close to you because distance is costly. And that can be well understood for a long time. But I think it's going to be more complicated than regions. The world doesn't divide comfortably into regions. We impose the logic of regions upon it, and it isn't really true. So, for example, if you look at Southeast Asia and East Asia, these countries trade massively with China and massively with America. Which region are they in?
Indo-Pacific.
If you include Indo-Pacific, includes the US, and it includes China, it's 2/3 of the world. So that's not a region, that's the world.
This is a global gambit.
On that, because I think I know what you're going to say, which is the euro.
Yeah.
But just on this, we've got Macron in the UK as at time of recording. He's always been a big fan of Eurobonds, but for the European Union to do this, there has to be some form of fiscal integration. It has to be
correct.
A United States of Europe, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
So I was hoping you could work that into.
Well, that was what I was going to say.
Well, there you go.
So there are.
Well, then it's gold.
Well, the euro.
Then it's gold.
Gold is not a currency. This is a profound mistake.
My previous guest was
Gold is not a currency. It's a store of value.
Interesting.
There are reasons we went to paper currency and then electronic currency. You can't pay stuff with gold. It's technically unworkable in a modern economy. You go around trying to buy things with gold, or go into the markets and say, okay, I'm going to deliver you N zillion tons of gold at the end of this transaction. You have to do it in some sort of electronic form of gold. And the electronic form of gold is essentially a currency. And once you've got this electronic form of gold, somebody somewhere is going to think, well, that'd be quite a good idea to change the price. And then you've got a dead gold standard. And that's what happened, by the way, in the history of the evolution of money. Paper money became unshackled from the gold to which it had been linked. That's a very complicated story, but that's basically the story. So gold can't be used as a means of payment directly. That makes it very, very different from a money. It can be a store of value. And as a unit of account, the problem has been historically that it's too variable in price. A currency which is reasonably shackled to the prices of goods and services in an economy, because that's what you try to do with it, fiat money that does that is just much more usable in terms of as a unit of account than an ounce of gold. we're not going to trade the world in ounces of gold. So gold can be the base of a monetary system, but only if fiat money is tied to it one-to-one. And nobody has got governments to tie their currencies to gold. In my view, the gold standard was dead by the end of the First World War. It was killed by the Americans in 1971, but the Americans weren't actually on the gold standard since the First World War. It's an illusion to think they were, but that takes you into a long way away from it. Gold is not going to be a currency, not in the modern world. It's not usable. It's a barbarous relic, to quote somebody.
The euro, you're feeling?
No, the euro. The euro has the advantage of there are financial markets. It can be traded, but the eurozone has two fundamental disadvantages, as you rightly said. It doesn't have a political entity behind it, an integrated political entity, and it doesn't have a fiscal system behind it. And because of those things, it's less secure than the United States. It can disappear. It's perfectly possible to imagine a world, much more likely than with the US, in which the currencies of the EU, the countries of the EU break up, the EU dissolves over some period of time, because the politics goes against it. If we get a whole slew of right-wing populist governments in Europe, in Germany, in France, in Italy, can you be really confident that the Eurozone Treaty will hold? I mean, there can be a lot of trouble. We've had in one huge Eurozone financial crisis, which was solved with great difficulty, perfectly possible, easy to imagine others. And you know that the US is not going to be dissolved. So there's a political question, and there's, as an expression of that, the obvious fact that the fiscal authorities, always crucial for a currency union, are national. They're not EU or Eurozone wide. So inevitably, because of these reasons, the whole structure is less secure than the US. So for the euro to become a replacement for the dollar in any plausible way, it's already got about 20% of world reserves, and the US has close to 60, so it's already doing quite well. But for it to replace the dollar, the Eurozone would have to become a credible political entity. As you say, certainly with a substantial fiscal capacity, Euro bonds, integrated financial markets, truly integrated financial markets, and none of that is going to happen in the near future. So I think, to paraphrase a famous remark made about democracy, the dollar is the worst of all possible alternatives, except for all the others. And so the dollar, more likely.
Every day you wait to make that hire, your competitors get another step ahead. With somewhere.com, we can fill your role in days.
More likely than the dollar will be replaced by something else. This is the key point, is that this world economy that we're now looking, which is the product of globalization of trading goods and services and of financial markets. This is the world economy we had created. This is disintegrating, right? That's obvious it's disintegrating for economic and political reasons. So a more likely future than the dollar is replaced by something else is that the global financial system fragments. So we will have a Eurozone area. It will be more self-sufficient, trade and finance. We will have an American area. We'll have a Chinese area. They will overlap. And the world will be very complicated and messy, and the currency areas will overlap, but we won't have a hegemon at all.
Interesting. I think what's happening is a return to regionalism. Right?
Well,
some people can argue we never really had pure economic globalization. Because countries tend to trade mainly.
Well, countries tend to trade for good economic reasons. The gravity equation is very powerful. You do most of your trade with countries close to you because distance is costly. That's been well understood for a long time. But I think it's going to be more complicated than regions. This is the world doesn't divide comfortably into regions. We impose the logic of regions upon it, but it isn't really true. So, for example, I'll give you a few examples. If you look at Southeast Asia and East Asia, these countries trade massively with China and massively with America. Which region are they in?
Indo-Pacific.
But if you include Indo-Pacific, includes the US, and it includes China, it's 2/3 of the world. So that's not a region, that's the world. The countries of Asia, more broadly, will not accept living in a purely Chinese sphere of influence. They will want the Americans involved as a balancing factor. That certainly applies to Japan, Korea, actually ASEAN, Indonesia, and certainly India. So that's not a region. If you look at South America, you find quite a lot of countries, because they're commodity exporters, trade more with China than they do with the US, because they're not really complementary with the US. They're more of competitors. Brazil exports soybeans. America exports similar stuff. The regions, if you look at Europe, if you look at it geographically, the Middle East is in the European region. But the Europeans haven't dominated that region since the Second World War because they don't have the military power to do so. So I think the regionalism is one of those sort of very neat fantasies. But the world as it is, culturally, economically, politically, doesn't fall neatly into regions. And that's why we've had world wars. And that's why China and the US are not regional powers. They're global powers. And that's why they conflict with one another. And they're not, there's some people who sort of fantasize about going home, but pretty obvious looking even how Trump, who really is a nationalist babe, he doesn't behave as if the only part of the world that matters is the Americas, because he knows that America has interests, economic, therefore vastly greater than that. Huge part of American corporate profits come from regions of the world which aren't the Americas. And the Americas for America is a backwater. South America gives them almost nothing compared to what they would lose if the rest of the world was all fell under the Chinese sphere. So I think we should forget regionalism. It's a fantasy.
But what then, and I guess I'll make this the last question, right, is what then is globalization? Because in my lifetime, sovereign debt crisis of the early 2010s, Brexit, 2008 financial crisis, the wars in the Middle East over ISIS, Trump's first term, all of this has been an illustration of a rejection of the prevailing Western-led order of, hyper-globalism and this idea of, homogenization, no borders. That's quite clearly being rejected now. You can argue whether in this regionalistic type or got tendencies, but we're shifting towards much more of a fragmented world. I think one paper in the Munich Security Conference called it a multiplex world, not multipolar. Now, someone who studied great power politics, people can argue that the Chinese want to replace the United States as the hegemon or simply just counterbalance. What do you see being sort of the most likely short to medium term international order, quote unquote?
Well, let me firm, I think most of what you say, though I recognize the rhetoric is sort of a straw man, because the global order, I wrote a book about globalization back in the early 2000s. The idea that what we were creating was a borderless world was a complete illusion.
At Brooklyn Solar Works, we are the solar experts for New York City homes. With custom solutions like our solar canopy and tilt racks, we install solar panels on brownstones, townhouses, co-ops, and condos while keeping your...
Was a complete illusion. Very few people said it either, but anyway, because this is the biggest point I made in my book. Integration into the world economy was a policy choice, crucial. And then a lot of countries made this choice to integrate because they had come to the view this would help them become more prosperous. But the entire order, the old globalization order, rested on the only sources of order in the system, which were states. There never was or could be a global political system. And so the globalization, the order of the system of economic integration was the policy choice of states, which provided all the legal and institutional, military and other powers required to provide security to the actors in this, the economic actors in this system. And they did that because they came to the view in different ways that this was going to help them prosper. And that was very much the ideology. So to me, globalization was a policy choice. And I've known, this is in my book, there have been periods in the past when the policy choice was made in different ways to integrate by powerful countries and then to disintegrate. After the global financial crisis in particular and other shocks, decisions were made to disintegrate by the same actors that made the decisions to integrate, namely states. And that's partly because the outcome of globalization was more destabilizing than they thought it would be, particularly in finance. It was partly because it brought about changes in relative economic power that some of them really disliked. Most notably, the enormous impact of the rise of China, which wouldn't have happened without globalization. And the result of this is that states, obviously domestic politics plays a crucial role in this, have increasingly decided they want less of this globalization than they thought 10 or 20 years ago, because it doesn't work for them. This is particularly, and I think mainly true for the West, because they have found, to their surprise, again, a theme of subsequent books of mine, that globalization has created very large opportunities for countries to catch up on them. It's accelerated the possibility, and that means declining relative position. And since the position in the world of the Western countries, US and Europe, was freakish, historically freakish, absolutely extraordinary, roughly, the US and its allies contain roughly 12% of humanity. And at its peak, they had, depends on how you measure it, 70% or so of the world economy. That wasn't going to last, in my view. It was never going to last, but the decline was going to be felt to be very painful, and they didn't like it, and they continued to dislike it, and they will go on disliking it, and they might blow up the world in order to prevent the decline. But it's going to go on. It's absolutely certainly going to go on. Unless there's World War III, by the middle of this century, there will be 3 great powers, and I would guess the US will be the third.
Well, the other two.
China will be in India.
China and India. Well, India, India's going to be very unequal.
Oh, well, India is very unequal, so is China, but it's going to have 1.8 billion people, and it doesn't have to be rich at an individual level to be one of the largest economies in the world. If it has a GDP per head, well, let me give you my famous here. The GDP per head of China is the same as Portugal's. Then China's economy will be as big as US and Europe together. And India is the same. Do you really think the Indians are incapable of becoming as prosperous as the Portuguese? I would have thought it's eminently possible. They're very bright people. Just look at who runs most of the biggest tech companies in the world. So, I mean, that is idea that somehow the Chinese can't catch up on Americans and Europeans, absolutely ridiculous. These are people who don't know China, or the Chinese. So so now the Europeans and the Americans are very frightened that these people are really able to learn, and they are catching up. So they want to close down. The Chinese don't. Now, there's another set of problems there, not so far really to the Indians. But the point I would make is that the perspective you put forward is very much a Western perspective on what happened. And it's also an illusion about what happened in the West, in my view. That states are and always will be the basis of political and legal order in our world. All that means. But
it's full of flaws in globalization theory. I mean,
I've always been very suspicious of international relations theory about economics, because basically none of them understand economics. But the point is, anyway, that as a matter of political reality, it wasn't some ideological commitment to some world where everybody was going to love one another that was involved. Countries chose these policies because they thought they would be good for them. The Reaganites and the Thatcherites went for free trade and free markets because they were seen as the same thing. Now, that's a perfectly good argument that they shouldn't be seen as the same thing. That's a whole set of other issues I can't go into now. It's a long history in economics of the relationship between the national economy and trade, integration of the world. But that was the decision. And after a number of painful experiences to do with the financial sector, not trade, and to do with deindustrialization, which is mostly not trade in my view, but had something to do with trade. There's been a political reaction, and the biggest political reaction, I think, has actually been against the movement of people, which is nothing to do directly with trade, but is part of this globalized world. So we're having a nationalist backlash, and the nationalist backlash is a change in the policy of states and an assertion of an attempted assertion of national identity against any other supranational identity. So throughout this entire period, all power systems were national. The least true of that was Europe, and the reason the Europeans went so far against national power politics was obviously what happened in the first half of the 20th century, and the correct perception that the European states on their own were too small to provide themselves with economic and political security, so they had to unify to some degree. So this simple story you're telling about globalization, the reaction in it, is not one I agree with. But where I do agree is we're clearly moving through a period of greater protectionism, nationalism, étatism altogether, and the French. It goes back to the French 17th century idea that the state controls the economy. The state controls and shapes the economy. It's clearly part of what's going on in America. And in different guises, it was also true under Biden. And in that world, you will expect to see disintegration of the world, of the things that have connected countries. Now, how far that will go, the last time we really did this was well, that brings us back to Trump. The problem with who's clearly the most important person in the system, far and away, is that his policies are utterly incoherent and unworkable. So, and everybody else in the world.
There was some issue with the audio, so I want to rewind it a little bit.
And it was a mess. Can we contain it? Well, that brings us back to Trump. The problem with who's clearly the most important person now involved in disintegrating the system, far and away, is that his policies are utterly incoherent and unworkable. So, and everybody else in the world is trying to work out, well, if this is what the US wants to do, where does it end? What do we do to respond? And if the US is behaving like this on trade, what do we do about the currency? All the things you mentioned. And I would say what we are now is simply in an era of chaotic fragmentation. It won't be stable, and what follows that?
I don't think he understands. He doesn't understand chaotic systems. When there's a phase transition between one state to another, it's usually chaotic. For example, going from, let's say, liquid water to a gaseous state, right? So water vapor from liquid water or ice to water. As it's moving towards that threshold point, and then the phase transition, it becomes more energetic and more chaotic. And then all of a sudden it moves into a different state. All right. So what is happening in the economic system in the United States is that we're going from a era of NAFTA, 35 years of shipping jobs away and importing deflation, to an era of building up the economic clusters in a pre-NAFTA environment. And so these two systems, these two flows economically, are causing a disruption, a chaotic disruption that leads to some sort of system stability later. When jobs were starting to be shifted, especially tool and die, in the beginnings of NAFTA, it was a chaotic situation, something that seemed maybe non-coherent because it was chaotic. What's going on? People were losing their jobs, but there was a shift of flow, right? Well, the same thing is happening just in reverse, the shift in flow. Now, to say that bringing back economic clustering is some sort of economic incoherent strategy, I don't think he's paying attention to what's going on here. The pendulum from NAFTA swung all the way, and now with Trump, it's that pendulum swinging back to a pre-NAFTA day. This pendulum has been swinging for 30. It's swung to its apex for the last 35. It took 35 years, and now it's swinging back.
Predictable. Looks like you've got your work cut out.
Yeah, well, I will be soon no longer on the scene, so somebody else will have to work out what has to happen. Okay. Thanks.
So if it's not predictable, how could it not be predictable if you are looking at it from a situation that it's a shift of phases, but you know what the phase will be in the end, and you can model it like a pendulum. The pendulum went to a certain point, and you can predict where the pendulum will swing back. So Wolf is wrong. Wolf is wrong.
So,
all right.
Fine. We have.
All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. This is going to focus on different systems of your body, your brain function, your heart, your vascular system, your metabolism, your musculature, your energy levels. They will improve. This has a very comprehensive compound profile. Read the label on my website. Take it every day. If you replace this as your breakfast, replace with this as your breakfast or for your lunch, you're going to lose weight. All right. But you don't have to just take Boomer Boost to lose weight. It's just an added benefit if you take it for your breakfast or for your lunch. But the point here is that you can use this many different ways. Now, if you're a person that doesn't need to lose weight, just eat your normal calorie intake and then mix it with soft foods, filtered water, smoothie, or just with milk. It's up to you. I mix it with soft foods, but take it every day. If you want to lose weight, you want to replace your breakfast or your lunch, not both, with Boomer Boost, with a smoothie or with milk or with soft foods like hummus or yogurt. And what you're going to notice is that you're going to be losing weight safely, and you're going to have energy throughout the day that you don't have to worry about spiking and then a crash or anything like that. You're going to have lots of energy. It's going to boost up your metabolism. It's also going to help to improve your A1C levels. So take this every day. This is also great if you work out, to take it as a pre or post-workout fuel source for your workout. It stacks really well with C60. C60 is a very strong antioxidant. You can get it in extra virgin olive oil, MCT coconut oil, or avocado oil. C60 is a 60 carbon molecule that will soak up free radicals hundreds of times, if not 1,000 times more than vitamin C. Now, C60 has to be in a lipid, an oil, for it to be absorbed properly. Now, take it on an empty stomach, teaspoon a day for best absorption. If you work out, take it before your workout. They'll soak up free radicals. They'll help you to recover quicker for your workout. Now, C60 is going to soak up free radicals at the cellular level, but also at the vascular level. And when it does it at the vascular level, it's reducing the chances of oxidized LDL. When you reduce the concentrations of oxidized LDL, that means you are reducing the chances of plaque buildup. In addition, C60 helps with the neurons, helps the mitochondrial health of the neuron, and reduces the stress in the neuron. And when your neurons are healthier, the myelin sheath is healthier. And when the neuron is healthier, it's going to be able to produce those neurotransmitters and shoot them off, and you're going to have that neural connection and maintain and improve those dendritic connections and have positive neuroplasticity. That means you're going to be able to think better, you're going to be able to have better memory, you're even going to have better motor coordination. But you have to view this in a holistic approach. It's not just taking C60, it's also proper diet and exercise and drinking filtered water, staying away from processed foods, staying away from high sugary substances, and do the 4 modalities of exercise: resistance training, cardio, balancing, and stretching exercises. These are all very important to maintain overall health. Another important feature to slowing down the aging process and reducing free radicals, reducing stress, is mindfulness. Get out of sympathetic and go into parasympathetic mode. And then you can do that through spirituality or mindfulness or meditation. Learn new things, read, write, talk to people in the real world. When you're an active person and you take care of your body is going to heal and slow the aging process. So please go to my store, take C60. I take a teaspoon a day every day. Very important to slow down the aging process. And it's a key pillar of my core protocol. The first pillar is cleanse, or max 35 or max 14. That helps to boost up your immune system. C60 is the second pillar to soak up free radicals. The third pillar is the turmeric, the ashwagandha, the lignans to boost up the immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. And the fourth pillar is the boom boost. That's going to rev up your metabolism and improve your energy levels. And when you do that regularly and you take that holistic approach, you're going to slow down that aging process. Your body is going to have more chance of healing. You're giving it the right nutrients. You're treating your body in a healing way, and you're reducing the chances of needing to be on pharmacopoeia. Now, sometimes people have to be on pharmacopoeia. All right? Maybe they treated their body, in such a way where it's in a disease state. But you want to get off of that pharmacopoeia and not have the side effects. Isn't it better to take supplements that will help to improve your lipid profile and help to improve your A1C levels naturally than to take pharmacopoeia, right? I would think the answer is yes, because pharmacopoeia has all these side effects. So you want to take care of your body in a holistic way, and with proper supplementation and the stacking and other modalities, you're going to be able to do that. So it's really important. Now, let's go to the video from MSNBC talking about O'Rourke Slam's lawsuit accusing him of bento bribes to Texas Democrats. So let's see what they have to say here. Now, I have a...
Give yourself 28 days and become the most dangerous person in the room. Let's be real. Most people over 40 use ChatGPT like it.
That commercial is so that commercial is so canned. I mean, you hear it all the time. Now, what is interesting is that I remember coming in I was flying into Boston through, I think it was JetBlue, and I was getting a coffee at I think it was at the JFK airport, and waiting in line to get that coffee. And guess who was in line just in front of me? I bumped into O'Rourke. He's a very tall guy. I mean, but and he was flying to Texas, actually. I think there was a shooting or something on that day in the news. This would have been in 2022 when I bumped into him at JFK Airport. All right.
With Texas Republicans turning up the pressure on Democratic legislators who left the state to stop the redistricting scheme, Republicans have unleashed a wave of legal action aimed at forcing them back. In the last 48 hours alone, they've launched lawsuits to strip them of their seats, introduced motions to have law enforcement track them down, and even accused former Congressman Beto O'Rourke of, quote, bribing lawmakers to break quorum by raising money for their travel expenses and legal defense. A district judge has temporarily sided with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, blocking O'Rourke from providing financial support to the Texas Democrats. But in remarks last night, O'Rourke says he's not backing down.
I was sued by Ken Paxton not once, but twice this week. He tried to stop us from holding this rally here today in Fort Worth. He tried to stop us from raising money to support these Democrats in the fight. He lost. And one of the worst things that we could do to Ken Paxton is to right now choose to donate to have the backs of these fighters, and we are not going to let him stop us. Are you with me on that?
And joining us now is the man you just heard, the founder of the organization Powered by People, former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke. Congressman, thank you for coming to the weekend. So you had what you said there about Paxton. I want to read you what he wrote in a post. He wrote, "I just defeated Beto O'Rourke in court. We secured a major victory, stopping runaway Democrats from taking Beto bribes and preventing deceptive fundraising. They told me to come and take it, so I did." Congressman, I don't think I need to ask the question. Just your response.
Yeah, he wanted to stop us from speaking. He wanted to stop us from rallying people to the defense of these brave Texas Democrats. And he wanted to stop us from raising money. We are doing all three. What strikes me about what's going on in this country right now is all of these powerful, wealthy people and institutions, the big law firms, the Ivy League universities, the tech moguls like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Tim Cook obsequiously giving Donald Trump a gold-plated iPhone, and they're all bending the knee. And it appeared almost inevitable, I think, to many in the country and probably to Donald Trump that anyone in his way would do the same. And I think that's what motivated him to try to come to Texas and steal 5 congressional
Now let me get
districts
this.
in the states.
We got to dive into O'Rourke. All right. Now, what did he say? He said it was the Ivy League and it was, the elite institutions or, the elite. All right. He's a liberal. All right. I don't even like him, but he's a liberal. Where did he go to school? He went to Columbia University for a BA, Bachelor's of Arts. He went to an Ivy League. He has an Ivy League education. See, don't be hoodwinked. Many of these Ivy Leaguers are liberal, but they want to spin it as if the elite, right, are controlling the system, but they're not the elite. He's another wine and cheese Democrat. That's what he is, a wine and cheese Democrat.
On the power
in the House of Representatives, but I don't think he counted on the fact that in Texas, our knees don't bend. We're not giving in. We're not giving up. We're not going to go away. We're going to fight these people. We're going to fight them until we win. It's those 54 Democrats who broke quorum, left the state, and stopped them from redistricting. It's tens of thousands more who are having their backs by donating to support them. And it's everyone who's organizing right now so that we win political power in 2026 and stop this guy from producing the slide into authoritarianism that is our future and our fate unless we do everything we can with what we've got right now.
Even with this temporary restraining order that is from the judge, you guys are still fundraising. You obviously held that rally. I'm also curious, what are the other types of things? Bless you. What are the other types of things that you guys could be doing? Because, with the Democrats, the House Democrats, and the leaving the state, that means there could be a vacuum within the state of people who are only hearing from Pepsi and people who are only hearing from the governor.
This is what I'm talking about with the wine and cheese Democrat. All right. You have white dude that's saying he's for the people. He's a wine and cheese Democrat that's Ivy League educated. But he's telling you that the elite is against you, but yet he's trying to frame the elite are just the Republican Party. All right. But the reality of the situation is that he's a wine and cheese elitist. And then look at this liberal guy, black. He's got this afro, right? Like it's something right out of the 1960s. I can't tell the difference between him and Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix, except that he's wearing a suit. Is this the kind of America that we want? Why can't the guy get a fucking haircut? Why can't he look presentable? Why does he have this kind of like weird ass chain that's attached to his collar? Why can't he just look appropriate? No, because these are the wine and cheese Democrats. They have this mindset because of their liberal education, their liberal arts education. Most of them don't have STEM ability. That's science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. All right. They don't have a STEM background. It's a humanities background. And they are trying to spin it by using wordsmithing, saying that there are elitists out there taking control of your life, and they are running the Republican Party. But it's quite the opposite. It's these humanity majors that literally don't understand the backbone of America is about making stuff, right? They don't understand the science. They don't understand the engineering. They don't understand the economic clustering. All they understand is taxation, bring in revenue, maintain power. That's all they get. That's all they know. And you got these guys, these wine and cheese Democrats. Would you want your daughter to be marrying these types of guys? Or would you rather have your daughter marry someone that is hardworking, that has good ethics, has those three pillars of God, country, and family? Or would you rather have them marry someone that is about abortion, burning the flag, and demonizing religion? Because that's what you got here. That's what you got here, right here. Brought to you by MSNBC. Right here. Let's continue. But O'Rourke wants to make you think that he's not an elitist. He has an Ivy League education, right? He's not an elitist, though.
about these things and missing the stories that you're telling here on our network? So are you guys going to, red parts of the state, knocking on doors and letting people know the truth?
Absolutely. So we had thousands with us last night in Fort Worth, Tarrant County, often referred to as the last reliably red urban county in America. Not going to be very red for very much longer. But later today, actually, after I finish speaking with you, Eugene and Jonathan, I am going to Abilene, Texas. I think that's a county, Taylor County, that voted for Donald Trump 72 or 73% in the last election, but we're not writing them off. We're going to show up there. Hundreds have already RSVP'd for the event. But we're also going to other parts of the country to make the case and remind everybody we're in this together. In Oklahoma City 3 nights ago, 1,500 people came out.
So let me get this straight. They can fake this census with illegal immigration, do gerrymandering with the districts in these blue states because they know they're losing population. And so they fake the census. They even fake the elections because they have people that are dead that are voting, or people that are voting that shouldn't be voting. All right. And now they want to say, well, wait a minute, you can't run a new census because you would catch us. You would catch the fraud. And oh, by the way, you can't try to undo the fraud that's been going on because these states are hemorrhaging the population, and they don't want the Republican Party to get the seat power that is rightfully theirs because fraud took place with the census. That's the real issue here. But they're caught, and now they're going, well, wait, Trump is a dictator. Trump is like, he wants to take illegal immigrants off the census. You got to remember, the census helps to determine how many seats each state gets for the House, for representation in Congress at the federal level. So if you fake the census with a bunch of people that shouldn't be on it, you get more seats than you deserve. So they're stealing. They're literally stealing. Talking about ethics, the Democratic Party is literally stealing seats they don't deserve, rightfully deserve, because of the faking of the census. That's the core issue here. Now, Trump's like going, well, we got to fix this. And the Democratic Party's going, well, you can't do that. We got to wait until the next census, which is going to be 2030. So they want to continue the fraud for the midterm election in 2026. They want to continue the fraud all the way through the general election of 2028. That's what the Democratic Party is pushing for. And these governors are saying, well, wait a minute here. The core issue is the fraud that took place in 2020 and tried to rectify it. No, they got to demonize the Republican Party because it was, it's the powerful. The Republican Party is the powerful, and they're going to just take away, from the people. The powerful are just going to take it away. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party actually used unlawful means to have certain seats allocated to certain states because the census is faked because of the illegal immigration. But we're going to take him for his word because he's a Texan, a Democrat that was educated at Columbia University. He's not an elitist. He wants you to think he's not an elitist. But some of the most elite people in this country are the wine and cheese, well-heeled, powerful establishment within the Democratic Party. And almost all of them went to Ivy League schools.
months before an election. Similar crowds in Omaha, in Kansas City, in Indianapolis, in Milwaukee. We were in Louisiana just 2 nights ago. I mean, we're going everywhere, bringing everyone together so that we are united in this fight. Our unity is our greatest leverage, our greatest strength, and we've got to use it against these guys before they steal this country.
Congressman,
before the Republican Party steals the country, yet the Democratic Party already stole it when they faked the census in 2020. Now, we're not even talking about faking the voting machines of 2020. We're not even talking about the fake voter rolls. We're just talking about the census. See, this guy's a fucking bullshitter. And there's so many people that fall into the bullshit crap that he's pushing.
Lieutenant Governor of Texas said something that on Tuesday, so almost a week ago, but it is so
I can't take it. I just can't take it. I can't take it. Okay, all right. The MSNBC newscaster, well dressed, nice tie, nice shirt, nice pocket square, well dressed, right? Black, liberal. Okay, it's no big deal. At least it's presentable. Go to the other side of the spectrum and the other guy looks like Jimi Hendrix. What the fuck? What the fuck? That's the problem. That's the problem with the liberals out there.
Play it for you and get your reaction on the other side.
Whatever it takes, Sean, whatever it takes, we're going to get it done. There's nothing they can do to stop us. And I challenge them. Come back and do the right thing. Don't run and hide because you've lost touch with the voters. Their problem are not redistricting lines. Their problem, Sean, is they've lost the minds of their voters who are moving towards the Republican Party all over the country.
Exactly.
Red state, we deserve more
And the
representation.
reason why the Democratic Party needed to do the fakery on the census and have this illegal immigration is because the states, the high electoral states, like New York and California, are losing population. So as the population moves to other states where the jobs are, where there's less taxes, less regulation, those red states are going to get more power in the House on Capitol Hill. And California and New York are going to slowly deflate. And the Democratic Party, because those are super blue states, will do everything in their power to try to maintain those seats, including fraud.
Congressman, quote,
Imagine being able to build anything, for any reason, in any style, at any scale, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform.
Congressman, quote, we're a red state, we deserve more more representation. This is what I found outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think it's super clear that Republicans care about power and nothing else. And for far too long, Democrats have cared about being right, coloring within the lines, following rules, and power has always been a secondary consideration. We need to absolutely flip that around and focus on power exclusively. It's why I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing by Governor Newsom in California, Governor Pritzker in Illinois, even Governor Hochul in New York. They're talking about seizing the initiative and redrawing their congressional boundaries to maximize Democratic Party advantage. We got to fight fire with fire. I mean, we wish the refs were going to call the fouls, that there were going to be penalties for what they are doing right now, but the refs have left the arena.
They're more corrupted.
All and to fight this out and to win. We got to be focused on it.
Congressman, but do you have, in going off of what you just said, do you have any concerns? Because I've talked to folks, especially folks that have been in the redistricting space, who have tried to democratize redistricting with independent redistricting efforts around the country. Democrats are the only ones that are actually doing that in different states. That's why their hands are tied behind their backs in some places. But do you have any concerns about lawmakers being able to choose their voters? Because that is essentially what gerrymandering is, right? These weirdly shaped spaces, and people choosing their voters instead of the other way around.
Absolutely. No one likes it. And I think that is what motivated Democrats in states like California to adopt these independent citizen-led redistricting commissions, which is a great idea if it is applied to every state at the same time. Effectively, though, what California did was to unilaterally disarm in the face of Texas being free to gerrymander their congressional districts, as they're attempting to do right now, to steal 5 congressional seats in our state. Because just to remind everybody why this is happening, Donald Trump's policies, the cuts to Medicaid, the terrorizing our fellow Americans with these Gestapo tactics, the massive transfers of wealth from working people to the richest 1%, deeply unpopular stuff. There's no way he holds on to the House of Representatives unless he can rig the game now in the summer of 2025 to try to steal the election in 2026. So Eugene, I do think it's incumbent upon Democrats to stop this, to win power, and then once in power, to apply this idea of getting politicians out of the room when there's redistricting, to return that power to the people, but to do it comprehensively across the country and not selectively just in blue states.
Congressman, we have less than a minute left, but you were talking about Democrats fighting back against the redistricting efforts. How else should Democrats be fighting back? Because there are a lot of fronts in this battle to withstand autocracy and to save our democracy. Should Democrats be doing more?
Absolutely. In 2024, we bore witness to the Democratic Party nationally spending more than $1 billion in 7 states, each of which we lost. I'm going to the other 43 right now to remind us all that we need to fight these folks on every single front, to your point, Jonathan. So in Omaha, where we were just a few nights ago, that's the seat Debanking is retiring from. We can win that seat. In Oklahoma City, where we were the night after that, we can win that seat. We could pick up seats even in Louisiana, in Missouri, in Kansas. We've got to be a 50-state party. We will not be a national threat. And so we've got to show up everywhere for everyone, write nobody off, and take no one for granted. And we've got to organize now in 2025 to win power in 2026.
Notice the word that he used, national threat. Threat? Why not national solution? Right? National threat. See, it's always bombastic Civil War rhetoric, from the Democratic Party. Because because they lost the Civil War and they wanted slavery. You ever wonder, how did the Democratic Party become the party of the minority or for the minority when actually the establishment of the Democratic Party was against the minority? It was for slavery. You ever wonder that? You ever wonder why what's that switcheroo? You ever wonder how that happened? The party of the Ku Klux Klan? Amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right, let's see if see what else is popping up on the news feed here. Let's listen to Cottrell.
I hate that I can't keep this a secret. I canceled all my food delivery subscriptions and upgraded to Cook. And it's totally transformed the way because every meal is crafted by award-winning chefs.
I'll tell you, for the ones that are, listening and you're buying these pre-made dinners, back in my day, back in the 70s, there were TV dinners, right? You just throw them into the freezer and you'd warm them up, right? And back in the day, you could warm them up in the oven or in the microwave, right? So it was usually in the oven, and then they actually, because they were in a tin, there was in like an aluminum tray, and then they moved towards warming them up in microwaves. All right, but that's really bad. It's bad. It's bad quality food. It has a lot of preservatives in it. But it's even worse today. Why? Because it's all microwaved, and it has this plastic wrapping on it, right? And so you're getting microplastics in your food, and that's going to cause disruption of your endocrine system and your immune system and your brain function. There have been studies that took place in Europe where they actually took autopsies of different people and analyzed the different tissues and noticed that there are higher concentrations now in the brain of microplastics and nanoplastics, and there was a high correlation between early onset of dementia and microplastics. So these people that are the young, that because they're so busy and they don't know how to make their dinner, they buy this pre-made shit. It's in plastic. They're literally increasing their chances of early onset of dementia. And then you wonder why the Gen Z and the millennials aren't going to be able to support anybody because their brain is Swiss cheesed. And then all of a sudden they just start voting for Democrats.
Want to talk more about this and a million other things. Joining us now, our great friend and mentor, Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, and author of Trump's Triumph, America's Greatest Comeback. Welcome back, Newt. Can I just get a word in? You know, this story on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, very important. It drove up stocks. Very underestimated, you know, 100% expensing, full depreciation, even on building a new factory, is going to give these companies huge new cash flows. They can raise workforce wages. They can train people better. They can give shareholders more returns. Well, I mean, this is almost an underrated point, but I think it's a very important point. What do you think?
Well, look, I think that if you take the combination of the one big beautiful bill with enormous breakthroughs in both taxes and regulations, you combine that with the relative effect for manufacturing of the tariffs, and you combine that with Trump's going around the planet, picking up sales for American goods and picking up investments for America. I think by next summer, we're going to be in the Trump boom. It's going to be very real, and it's going to create a choice for the voters next year between a Trump boom on the one hand and the Democrats' gloom on the other hand. The imagery you just showed of Schumer could hardly be better. I mean, these guys are proud of having stopped the American people from having the folks they want run the federal government. I think as the country understands what a deliberate strategy this is, they're going to be very unhappy that the Democrats are deliberately trying to keep the Biden people in charge despite the election.
But let's continue that discussion because I think Mr. Schumer is missing a few key political points as we go along. Now, here's a CNN analyst, all right? This is this chap, Harry Enton, talking about Donald Trump as the most influential president in the new century. Take a listen to this, Newt.
I can't think of a more... I can't think of a more influential president during this century, and it starts here with tariffs. He said he was going to raise tariffs, and despite the claims otherwise, he is in fact doing that. Trump, at least in my mind, is the most influential president, certainly this century, and probably dating a good back chunk into the 20th century as well.
All right, there you have it. You know, good for him. Now, this is interesting. Trump promised tariffs and they delivered tariffs. I think tariffs are underrated. People are happy. Remember, Trump rang the bell on the China trade threat. Tariffs are a way to protect that. That was in the first term. That was actually before the first term. Tariffs are protecting the American economy from unfair trading practices. I think people like that. Also, Newt, let me add, the border, huge issue in the last election. The Democrats were totally wrong on that. They still are. And also, Newt, woke.
The Democrats embrace woke, men and women's basketball teams, DEI, anti-Semitism. They're all for everything. Chuck Schumer can say what he wants, but here's this chap, Harry Enton from CNN, showing you the real numbers, how bad the party situation is. What do you think about this? Why is Schumer missing everything? And why is Trump getting everything right?
Well, look, and Schumer's terrified that AOC is going to run against him in the primary next year. And he knows that if she does, she'll almost certainly beat him. So he is basically walking a tightrope. He's been around long enough. He's known Trump personally long enough that he knows what he's saying is nonsense. But his caucus is now so far to the left that he has almost no choice except to repeat these things. Something happened to the Democratic Party really after Bill Clinton. Clinton was the last person who was sort of a semi-moderate, and it's gone steadily to the left. Obama really captured it. Biden was basically Obama's third term. And when you look around, Mondami is a potential mayor of New York with government-run grocery stores. The Democratic candidate for mayor in Minneapolis is even more radical than Mondami. There's an emerging socialist wing of the Democratic Party, and it's the most militant, most aggressive, and best organized part of that party. All of this cripples them from dealing with reality. So in order to appease their base, they adopt things like stopping the president from getting the people he needs in office and trying to keep the government as much like Biden as possible. That's just all going to blow up on them. The country's not going to tolerate it. And by next summer, I think you're going to see a civil war in the Democratic Party. You're going to see the Republicans able to talk about an amazing economic development, an amazing border development, and America having returned once again to being the most dynamic country in the world. Trump is far and away the most powerful president in the 21st century. And frankly, if he can win the 26th election and sustain the momentum, he will rival or pass Franklin Delano Roosevelt in terms of shaping American politics and government.
So I've got one more. It's very interesting. From this CNN analyst, who's really an honest guy. Take a listen to this one.
At this particular point, the Democratic brand is in the basement. It is total and complete garbage in the mind of the American public.
Garbage news. I mean, that's really something. I'm surprised this guy's still alive at CNN, but good for him. I give him a lot of credit. He's got a lot of energy. Some folks here know him. We talked about this morning on Outnumbered, the same thing. So I wanted to raise it with you. I mean, he says garbage. He used garbage. And I think the Democratic approval in that poll is 18%. Now, again, the Democrats are on the wrong side of every issue, but they keep criticizing Trump on every issue. And my other point, just a small point, you mentioned it at before. With Bill Clinton, Clinton was a centrist who kind of spanned, left of center, right of center. He was able to do that. I think President Trump has done the same thing. He's basically spanning what you call, 80% approvals. He's spanning left of center and right of center. And the far left of the Democrats don't get it. And Trump has become the centrist president, even though, he wants to undo Washington and its deep state. But he's the centrist guy. And the Democrats have been crowded out of politics.
Look, we have a project called the America's New Majority Project, and we take polls all the time. Right now, there's a potential 72% base for these policies. Not all of them going to Trump yet, but gradually moving that way. And that leaves about 28% left for the left-wing Democratic Party. It's really a remarkable change. In my lifetime, I've never seen anything like it. And it's beginning to put the Democrats in danger of really having next year a catastrophic defeat.
One other thing. This goes to what Mr. Schumer was saying and whining about. But I think that the Democrats are really on the wrong side of the spending issue, particularly the waste, fraud, and abuse, the Doge issue, I'll call it, okay? Elon Musk may be gone, but Doge is still there. They're still going to come in with rescissions in the next few months, or at least I hope they are. There's close to $200 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse. Democrats oppose any cuts in spending at all. Anything, any waste, fraud, and abuse, they oppose it. They don't know the difference between policy and waste, fraud, and abuse. I think the public can be persuaded to come along with continued DOGE spending cuts, which will really give Mr. Trump another upper hand on a key issue. Now, what do you think about that? There's always risk. Nobody likes to cut spending in Washington, but maybe that's changed, Newt.
Look, the American people know that we need to move back towards a balanced budget, as we had when I was Speaker. The American people know that if you're paying over $1 trillion a year in interest payments, more than your national defense budget, something's profoundly wrong. And they know that this is a spending problem, not a revenue problem. You have a big, bloated, bureaucratic system filled with waste, filled with fraud, and filled with incompetence. And the average American, by the way, in a Gallup poll, the average American thinks 50% of all federal spending is waste. Now, you and I know that's high, but nonetheless, it gives you a feeling for the country. And if the Democrats become the party of big spending, big deficits, huge interest payments, weird social policies, weakness in foreign policy, open borders, favoring the criminals over the police, they're going to be in for a very long, difficult process.
You just articulated the Mandami, the commie platform. You just laid it right out perfect. You did it better than he did. One thing after another. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Anyway, thank you to Newt Gingrich. We appreciate it as always.
President Trump.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the heirloom barley. Heirloom barley will detoxify your body, reduce inflammation, and soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. It's a high-density protein. It's a powder. You take it every day. Mix it with soft foods, filter water, milk, or a smoothie. The other barley that I offer is Gladiator barley. Gladiator barley has all the benefits of heirloom barley, but it also helps to build muscle, especially when you do resistance training. It stacks really well with Myotrol, and both heirloom barley and Gladiator barley stacks well with Boomer Boost. Take it together, and guess what? You're going to control your A1C levels. That's really important. And when you bring down inflammation by taking the barley, you're also helping your immune system, you're helping your vascular system, you're even helping your joints, because when you have arthritis, by reducing inflammation, you're helping reduce that issue, that irritation. Also, by bringing down inflammation at the brain level, you are helping to protect the myelin sheath of the neuron. When you get older and you have inflammation at the cerebral level, what happens is that little fragments of the myelin sheath start to flake off. And over time, the neuron becomes less efficient in shooting that signal to the other neuron. And so over time, actually that neuron starts to degenerate and lose connection. And when it starts to lose connection and starts to die off, then over time, your neural network starts to recede. And you start to think slower, you start to have less memory, your motor coordination starts to become an issue. So it's really important to understand that reducing inflammation not just helps with your immune system and your endocrine system and your vascular system, but also neural health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Thank you for listening. I've been broadcasting for over 3 hours. For everyone that's been watching on YouTube, thank you very much. For the ones that were watching on my website, the live stream, thank you for watching there. And the ones that are listening on X Spaces, thank you for listening. Tonight at 10 p.m., I will have a live show with John Hogue. It's planned to have that show tonight. And so we're going to hopefully talk about a lot of different things, and we'll be able to take your questions either through text, and we can take your questions live on X Spaces. So if you want to ask John Hogue a question, please join us tonight at 10 p.m. New York time. That's Eastern time. So thank you for listening and have a nice day.